Imagine. You wake up in the silence of the Arizona desert. The night air is cold, dry, and endless. Above you, a sky so full of stars it feels alive. At first, it seems like any desert night. You hear the faint rustle of wind pushing through sagebrush, the soft crunch of sand shifting beneath the slow breath of the earth. The air smells faintly of creosote and dust, a scent that clings to memory long after it fades from the air. But linger a little longer. Look closer. That silence isn't empty. It's speaking. The Hopi say that every star is a word, every constellation a sentence written by the ancestors across the black skin of the night. To them, this is not a sky. It's a library. And you, right now, are standing in the middle of its oldest story. You exhale. The sound disappears into the vastness. The desert doesn't echo, it absorbs. The mesas rise around you, their red cliffs glowing faintly under starlight, like ancient embers still holding heat from a fire lit thousands of years ago. A coyote calls somewhere in the distance. A single note, long and low. And for a moment, it feels like the land itself is remembering. You are in the high plateau of northern Arizona, sacred homeland of the Hopi, the peaceful people. Their villages crown the mesas like crownstones of time, places where the wind still carries prayers in the Hopi tongue, and where every sunrise and every star is greeted as kin. Here, night is not an absence of light. It is a presence, a being. The Hopi call it Tuwinasavi, the center of the world. To them, this desert is not barren. It is the heart of creation. Sit with that for a moment. The sand beneath you was once the floor of an ancient ocean. The stars above you, the bones of long-dead suns. Between them, this fragile thread of existence. Where the Hopi have lived, farmed, prayed, and watched the heavens for more than 1,000 years. Listen closely, and you might hear the rustle of corn leaves in the dry wind. Ghosts of fields that once covered this plateau, fed by the rhythm of stars and rain. For the Hopi, the cosmos is not distant. It breathes here. In the soil. In the wind. In the slow turning of the night sky above the mesas. They say the stars remember the beginning. And to remember is to live rightly. You tilt your head back. There, Orion, rising in the east, his belt glittering like beads on a sacred sash. The Hopi know him as Hotankam. A hunter, yes, but also a guardian. A celestial messenger who walks both the earth and the heavens. The same constellation that guided the pharaohs of Egypt, that shaped the pyramids of Giza, also guided the Hopi in building their own mirrored villages. A reflection of the sky brought down to earth. The night deepens. The stars seem closer now, their light trembling on the horizon. You notice something strange about this stillness. It isn't empty. It hums softly, like the breath of the universe itself. In Hopi stories, this hum is called song without sound. It is the vibration that ties all life together. Plants, wind, water, even stone. It is the same hum that echoes in the deep silence between stars. To live without hearing it is to be lost. To live with it is to remember who you are. A fire flickers in the distance. You walk toward it. Each step releases the faint scent of crushed sage beneath your feet. As you approach, figures appear in the glow. A circle of Hopi elders wrapped in woven blankets. Faces lined with both laughter and weather. Their eyes gleaming like polished obsidian. No one speaks. They don't need to. The stars are doing the talking. An old man gestures toward the sky with his hand. His voice, when it comes, is soft and rough as sandstone. He speaks of Sotuknang, the Creator, and of Tawa, the Sun Spirit, who watches over all living things. He says that long before the first village was built, the people looked up and saw patterns in the stars, signs that told them when to plant, when to pray, and when to prepare for the turning of the world. Those patterns were not random. They were messages, stories, maps. The Hopi believe the sky is not merely above us. It's mirrored within us. To lose sight of the stars is to lose sight of the soul. You watch as the firelight flickers across the elder's face. His hands move slowly as he traces invisible shapes in the air. Spirals, lines, the path of Orion's belt. He's describing the star maps. Those carved symbols etched into canyon walls and cliff faces, marking the movements of the heavens across centuries. The spirals, he says, are portals, gateways through which souls and seasons travel. The dots are stars. The lines, paths of migration, both earthly and celestial. You begin to understand. These carvings were not decoration. They were instructions, messages from the ancestors to the future, reminders of balance, of harmony between earth and sky. The fire pops, and sparks rise into the dark like tiny worlds being born. For a moment, you imagine each spark finding its place in the great design above, joining the constellation of stories that never end. The elder pauses, gazing into the fire. The stars, he says finally, are not far away. They live in us. Each time we speak their names, each time we tell their stories, we keep the world in balance. He lifts a handful of sand and lets it fall. The grains catch the light, glinting briefly like a miniature galaxy. Then they vanish into the earth. The wind picks up, sighing across the plateau. You can taste the desert. A mix of dust, fire, and eternity. The old man smiles. You see, he says quietly, the land and the stars, they are the same. You close your eyes, and for a heartbeat, you feel the world turn. The constellations shift overhead like slow-moving rivers of light. Somewhere, a drum begins to beat, steady, low, echoing like a pulse. It is not just a sound. It is time itself, measured not in seconds, but in heartbeats, in cycles, in generations of watchers gazing upward and downward. At once, the night wraps around you, thick and infinite. You feel as though you're standing inside a living being, a universe that breathes, remembers, and listens. Somewhere beyond the firelight, a whisper rises, a voice carried on the wind. Look up. Remember. You open your eyes, and the desert sky blooms above you. Millions of stars, each one a seed of memory, each one a story waiting to be told. And so begins the journey, through fire and silence, through myth and science. You will follow the maps carved in stone and starlight, tracing the paths that connect heaven to earth, and earth to the human heart. The fire burns lower. The elders fade back into the darkness, their voices carried off by the wind. All that remains is the endless sky, a mirror, a teacher, a memory of beginnings. And as you sit beneath it, the first faint glow of dawn begins to edge over the horizon, turning the stars pale and distant, as if retreating back into their secret world until night falls again. The dawn arrives quietly, not like the sudden brightness of city mornings, but as a gradual awakening, a soft stirring of light that seeps over the desert floor, painting the mesas gold at their edges. The stars fade one by one, like embers cooling after a long fire. You're still sitting there in the sand, the cold of the night retreating from your skin. The world feels vast again, and yet intimate, as if the horizon itself has drawn closer to listen. The Hopi say the world is always listening. The stones, the wind, the clouds that drift across the sky, all of them alive, all of them aware. And humanity, they say, was never placed above the world, but within it, one heartbeat in the great body of the earth. They call themselves Hapatushurnumu, the peaceful people. Or more simply, the people. To be Hopi is not just to belong to a tribe. It is to walk in balance with the breath of all things. The elder from the night before said something you can't quite forget. The land and the stars, they are the same. You watch the morning unfold, and you begin to understand what he meant. The sun edges higher, its first rays striking the sandstone cliffs in the distance. The rock seems to wake, its surface glowing as though lit from within. A faint breeze passes, carrying with it the scent of dust, juniper, and the faint sweetness of sage. It's the scent of something ancient, the breath of a world that remembers. Far to the east, a small village crowns the mesa. Stone houses, built from the same red rock they stand upon, blend so perfectly with the land that you almost don't see them at first. They look less constructed than grown. Smoke rises gently from a few chimneys. Thin, silver lines against the morning blue. As you approach, you hear voices. The soft laughter of children chasing each other along the narrow paths. The rhythmic scrape of a broom sweeping dust from a doorway. And the low murmur of a woman singing as she grinds corn on a flat stone. Her voice is like the desert wind, steady, patient. Each note carrying both rhythm and reverence. The song has no beginning, no end. It loops endlessly, like the cycle of the seasons. Every few moments she pauses, touches the cornmeal to her lips, and whispers a small prayer, a gift to the earth, and to the spirits who made it fertile. To the Hopi, corn is more than food. It is life itself, a sacred relative, a gift from the Earth Mother. Each kernel holds a story, a memory of creation. When a child is born, cornmeal is sprinkled upon them. When someone dies, cornmeal marks their passage to the next world. In between, every meal, every prayer, every celebration is offered in its presence. The woman looks up at you and smiles. Her eyes carry both kindness and centuries. You are walking, she says, in the home of our ancestors. Her words are not boastful, not guarded, just fact. The ground beneath your feet, the air filling your lungs, all of it is inheritance, and you are a guest inside it. She gestures toward the rising sun. It is good to greet him, she says softly, to remind him that we are still here. For the Hopi, the sun is not merely a star burning in the sky. It is Tawa, the father of all life. Each dawn they rise to greet him, not as worshippers, but as family. The relationship between the Hopi and the heavens is not one of awe from afar. It is intimacy, kinship. They do not separate the earth from the sky. They are threads of the same fabric. You walk a little further, following the sound of drums. The rhythm grows stronger, steady, heartbeat-like. Around a small open plaza, a group of dancers moves in slow circles. Men and women dressed in feathers, painted with colors of the desert. Ochre, white, turquoise, and black. They move as if guided by unseen hands, their feet touching the earth in perfect time with the drum. You notice how they glance upward between steps, as though acknowledging something above them, not in devotion, but in recognition. A reminder that every movement below echoes a pattern above. This dance, an elder tells you, is part of the Katsina ceremony. The Katsinam, spirit beings, are said to dwell in the clouds, in the mountains, and in the stars. They bring rain, fertility, and balance to the world. When the dancers wear their masks and step into the plaza, they are not pretending to be these spirits. They become them. Bridges between heaven and earth. You watch the dust swirl around their feet. Each grain of sand catches the light, like 1,000 tiny suns rising from the earth. It feels as though the desert itself is dancing. The rhythm pulls you in. You feel your own heartbeat syncing with the drum. The sound seems to come not from instruments, but from the ground beneath your feet. from the world itself. The elder beside you nods. You feel it, he says. This is how the people of the earth and sky speak. Through movement. Through sound. Through breath. He lifts his hand toward the horizon, where the desert stretches out like an ocean of light. Every hill, every shadow, is part of the same body. He continues, and every star above it is part of the same mind. When we dance, we remind them both to move together. You remember something he said the night before. That to be Hopi is to walk in balance. Now, watching the dancers, you begin to understand what that means. It isn't just a way of life. It's a rhythm. A song of coexistence between flesh and stone, wind and spirit. When the dance ends, the air feels charged with something you can't name. Not electricity, but presence. The kind that lingers long after the sound fades. A little boy runs past you, his face painted with white lines that shimmer in the sun. He stops, grins, and points upward. Cloud people, he says proudly, as a flock of white shapes begins to gather in the blue above. You follow his finger and see them. The first soft clouds of afternoon, drifting lazily toward the mesa. See, the boy says. They heard the drums. In that moment, you understand that for the Hopi, nothing happens in isolation. The sky answers the earth. The people answer the stars. And everything, every stone, bird, river, and breath, is part of one conversation that never ends. You sit again on the edge of the mesa. The village behind you, the desert stretching endlessly before. A hawk circles high overhead, its shadow gliding silently across the rock. The sun is bright now, the air humming with the soft buzz of life. Insects, wind, the murmur of distant voices. And then you hear another sound, low, resonant. A man singing alone, his voice rising from a nearby kiva, the underground chamber where the Hopi hold their most sacred ceremonies. You can't see him, but his song carries easily through the still air. It's an old song, older than memory. The kind that doesn't need translation. It sounds like the turning of the earth itself. You close your eyes and listen. The melody rises, falls, and rises again. You can almost hear the shape of mountains in it. The slow journey of clouds. The pull of the moon on the breath of the land. The Hopi believe that words have power. That to speak is to shape reality. Songs are not merely expression, they are creation. Each verse, each breath, helps the world remember how to exist. The singer's voice grows softer now, fading like sunlight slipping behind a distant ridge. When the last note dissolves into silence, you open your eyes. The sky has deepened to a deeper, richer blue. Evening is returning, and with it, the first faint glimmers of starlight. You realize that here, day and night are not opposites. They are a dialogue. The sun gives way to the stars, the earth to the sky, and the people stand between them, translators of both. Somewhere far off, a bell made of stone strikes 3 slow tones. Its sound seems to ripple through the desert, as though calling the stars to rise once more. You take a deep breath. The air tastes of smoke, corn, and cooling sand. The horizon glows red, then violet, then dark. Above you, the first stars awaken again. The same ones that watch the dances. The same ones that listen to the song. They shine brighter now, as though in approval. And as night folds once more over the desert, you realize you have crossed a threshold, not into another world, but into a deeper understanding of this one. The Hopi do not live under the stars. They live with them. They are, truly, the people of the earth and sky. The fire of the previous night is long cold, but its glow remains inside you. A quiet light that hums in rhythm with the wind. Somewhere behind you, a voice whispers again. The same gentle murmur that greeted the dawn. Remember, we are all made of the same dust, the same stars, the same breath. And as you look upward once more, you feel it. That ancient hum returning. That song without sound. The wind changes. It comes softly at first, curling around the stones, lifting faint spirals of sand that glitter in the starlight like smoke. You draw your blanket closer, and somewhere deep in your chest, you feel that hum again. The low, steady thrum of the universe breathing. The Hopi call this moment between dusk and darkness Koema. The twilight of transition. When spirits are near and the boundaries between worlds grow thin. It's the hour when prayers rise easiest. When stories remember their beginnings. You sit once more near the mesa's edge. The sky deepening from violet to black. A sea of stars unfolds above, each point of light sharp as a grain of salt. You no longer look at them as distant. You feel them as presence. Alive, deliberate, familiar. For the Hopi, the heavens are not an unreachable expanse. They are family. And long before astronomers named constellations after Greek heroes, these stars had Hopi names. Each a being with purpose, each a reminder of balance and memory. A quiet voice speaks beside you. It is the same elder from the first night. His face now silvered by moonlight. His expression somewhere between solemnity and peace. He gazes upward. When we look to the sky, he says, we see not fire, but life. The stars are not eyes looking down on us. They are the eyes of those who went before. He lifts his hand and points toward a cluster near the zenith. That one, he says, you call Venus. We call it Masa's star. Masa, the guardian spirit, the caretaker of the fourth world. In Hopi tradition, he is both protector and reminder. A being who teaches humility, balance, and the sacred responsibility of being human. When the Hopi first emerged into this world, it was Masa who greeted them, who showed them how to live lightly upon the land, how to leave only footprints and prayers. He gave them corn, and with it, the way to remember gratitude. So when that brilliant planet rises each dawn and dusk, the Hopi do not see a ball of reflected sunlight. They see Masa, standing watch over the people, reminding them of their covenant with the earth. You follow the elder's gesture as he traces patterns across the sky. Orion's belt, the Pleiades, the path of the Milky Way. These are not just stars, he murmurs. They are our ancestors' campfires. They watch us as we once watched them. He tells you how, in the time before memory, the sky was crowded with gods. Not gods in the distant, judgmental sense, but beings of immense light. Teachers, wanderers, guardians. Each star a consciousness, each constellation a council. The Hopi say the first people came from the stars, not as conquerors, but as travelers, descending from the heavens to learn how to live in harmony with earth. Their stories are full of visitors from the Tapkia, the above, beings who walked among the people, taught them how to plant, to build, to dance, and then returned to the sky once balance was restored. In the soft rhythm of his words, you sense no conflict between science and spirit. To the Hopi, the cosmos is both laboratory and prayer, a place of laws and of stories, woven so tightly that to pull one apart would unravel the other. He pauses, his eyes reflecting a cluster of stars so clearly it's as if they live inside him. In our tongue, he says quietly, we do not say we believe. We say we remember. The fire from nearby flickers, and a handful of younger men sit around it, their faces lit by orange glow, their laughter echoing softly against the rock. One of them begins to sing. The melody drifts upward, slow, haunting, cyclical. It repeats like an orbit. You can feel it resonating in your bones. Each repetition deepens. each note like the beating of cosmic wings. The elder joins the song with a low hum. This song, he says between verses, was given by the stars. Our ancestors heard it while watching the sky. They said the stars sang it to them, teaching the rhythm of growing things. The time to sow, the time to harvest, the time to rest. He leans closer to the fire, his eyes still reflecting the constellations above. The stars are alive. He whispers, when they move, the world moves. When they speak, we listen. The fire pops. Sparks rise into the night. Tiny souls ascending back to their celestial homes. You watch them vanish. And the silence that follows feels profound. Not emptiness, but fullness too vast for sound. The Hopi believed that in the beginning, the universe was a song. Not words, not light, but vibration, pure and eternal. Every mountain, every person, every star is an echo of that first sound. When you walk in balance, you add your verse to it. When you forget who you are, the song weakens. That is why the Hopi look to the heavens. Not for answers, but for reminders. You look again at Orion, his belt now rising high above the desert. To Western eyes, he is a hunter. To the Hopi, he is Hotamkum, the warrior of balance. He watches over the people in winter, guiding the renewal of life. When his bright belt appears on the horizon, it signals the season of ceremony, a time to honor the cycles of death and rebirth. The villages of the Hopi mesas were built to reflect these stars, each pueblo aligned with celestial precision, each doorway greeting the solstice sunrise, each kiva corresponding to a point of light. Their architecture was prayer rendered in stone. The people did not build beneath the heavens. They extended them downward, so that the sky could find its reflection upon the earth. Imagine living that way, not as separate from the cosmos, but as a participant in it. Your home, your fields, your songs, all harmonized with constellations. Your sense of time measured not by clocks, but by the slow dance of light across the canyon walls. You realize something subtle but immense. For the Hopi, divinity is not elsewhere. It is everywhere. The sacred is not confined to temples, but found in the glint of a star on water, in the grain of a corn kernel, in the breath you just took without noticing. The elder rises slowly, brushing dust from his knees. He looks at you with that same calm certainty, the kind carried by those who have lived long enough to see patterns repeat. When we say the stars are gods, he says, we do not mean they demand worship. They are guides, older brothers, who show us how to live. He begins to walk, and you follow him along the narrow path winding up the mesa. The stones underfoot are cool, the air sharp with night. At the crest, he stops beside a small petroglyph carved into the rock, a spiral surrounded by clusters of dots. He traces it gently with one finger. Our ancestors carved this when the stars moved differently, he says. They wanted those who came after to remember that even the heavens change. But the song remains. You crouch beside him. The carving glows faintly under starlight, the spiral seeming to move if you stare long enough. Is it a map? You ask. He smiles. It is everything, he replies. A map, a prayer, a memory of light. Below you, the desert stretches to infinity. Far in the distance, lightning flashes on the horizon. Silent, silver veins across the dark. The elder watches it for a long time. When the storm comes, he murmurs, the stars still watch. Even behind clouds they see. Even when we forget them, they remember us. His words hang in the air like the afterglow of the lightning. You look up again, and the Milky Way arcs across the sky, a river of luminous dust flowing from horizon to horizon. Some Hopi call it Palalakang, The path of souls. It is where the spirits travel after death, guided by starlight back to their origins. You imagine that river carrying countless lives, each one a spark returning home. In the grand hush of the desert night, it feels utterly true. The elder begins to hum again. A melody so low it feels more like vibration than sound. You feel it in your ribs, in the sand, in the stars themselves. It's the same song he spoke of earlier, the song of beginnings. You close your eyes. For a moment, everything, the stars, the desert, your breath, merges into one single, endless note. And in that sound, you sense the oldest truth the Hopi hold, that the divine does not sit above creation. It is creation. It burns in the sun, walks in the wind, and looks back at you from every star that ever lived. The elder's voice fades to silence. He turns and begins to walk back toward the village, leaving you alone with the sky. The wind brushes your cheek like a hand in farewell. Above, the stars gleam, still gods, still watching. And for the first time, you do not feel small beneath them. You feel infinite. A spark of the same fire that burns across the cosmos. Somewhere, far below the horizon, the first faint blush of dawn waits to rise again. You can almost sense it. The return of light. The eternal breathing of the world between night and day. The night breathes again. The wind curls down from the mesas and drifts through the dry washes below, whispering across the stones like the memory of an ocean long vanished. The stars have begun their slow descent toward the west, and you sense, somehow, that it is time to look downward, into the earth itself. The elder's words still echo in your mind. Even the heavens change, but the song remains. Perhaps that song, you think, does not only belong to the stars above, but to something older, something buried beneath the dust, waiting to be remembered. You begin to walk toward the canyon. The trail narrows, winding between boulders shaped by centuries of wind. Your footsteps sound small against the vast silence. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote calls again, a voice stretched thin across the dark. When you finally reach the base of the cliff, you see it, a circular opening carved into the rock, its edges smoothed by countless hands. The air that flows from it is cool, heavy, and sweet with the scent of stone and earth. This is the Sipapu, the place of emergence, the sacred portal between worlds. According to Hopi tradition, it was through such an opening that the first people emerged into this world. It is both womb and doorway, a reminder that creation begins not in light, but in the quiet depths beneath it. You kneel beside the opening. The wind that breathes from within seems to sigh like something alive. In the faint starlight, you imagine a time before this world existed, when the people lived far below the surface, in vast chambers of twilight and silence. The Hopi say that before this world, our fourth world, there were 3 others. Each one born, lived, and destroyed. Because the people forgot their covenant with creation. They grew selfish, cruel, and deaf to the song of balance. Each world was ended. One by fire, one by ice, one by flood, until the survivors, guided by the voice of Sotuknang and the spirit of Spider-Woman, found refuge beneath the ground. Spider-Woman, Kokiangwidi, the weaver of life, the mother of creation, who spun the web that connects all things. When the old worlds collapsed, she gathered the faithful, wrapping them in threads of her own making, carrying them through the dark waters into the caverns below. There they waited, learning patience, learning humility, until the earth above was ready again. The elder's voice returns to you, though he is nowhere in sight. Spider-Woman taught us that every thread touches another. No one stands alone. To forget that, he had said, is to begin the end of the world. You close your eyes and imagine the people in those underground chambers. Their fires flickering against damp walls. The air thick with the smell of clay and smoke. They lived in darkness. But not despair. They listened. They watched. They dreamed of light. And when the time came, Sotuknang appeared among them. His form shining like dawn breaking through stone. He told them they would soon rise again. That a new world awaited above. But that they must climb carefully. For the passage between realms is narrow and sacred. And only those who remember balance may pass through. He pointed to a small hole in the ceiling of the cavern. A tunnel carved by water or by miracle. This, he said, is the Sipapu. Climb with humility. Climb with prayer. The people began their ascent. Some used reeds to build ladders. Others sang songs to keep fear away. Spider-Woman guided them, her threads shimmering faintly in the dark, leading them upward through stone and time. At last, one by one, they emerged into light. They crawled out onto a new world. This world, blinking against the brilliance of the sun. The earth was still young then. The sky raw and open. The rivers newborn. They looked around and saw nothing but endless land. And then, for the first time, they felt wind on their faces. They breathed deeply. And they wept. From that day forward, the Hopi remembered that they were not the first people of creation. Nor would they be the last. They were caretakers. Temporary tenants in a living universe. Every prayer, every harvest, every birth was a renewal of that ancient promise, made beneath the ground. You lean closer to the Sipapu, feeling the cool breath of the underworld brush your skin. It smells of rain trapped in stone. If you listen carefully, you think you can hear a faint sound rising from its depths. A whisper of voices, ancient and overlapping, singing the old songs of emergence. The Hopi still honor that moment in ceremony. In every kiva, a small hole is carved into the floor. A symbolic sipapu, to remind them of where they came from. Each time they descend into the kiva for ritual, they are not merely entering a room. They are returning to the womb of the world. Back to the place of origin. Inside those underground chambers, the air grows still. The flicker of firelight paints the walls in amber and shadow. Men sit cross-legged around the sacred space. Their faces solemn but serene. The smell of burning cedar fills the air. When the prayers begin, they rise slowly. Not as words but as vibrations. Soft chants that move like breath through the darkness. Each voice joins the others, weaving together into one sound. The echo of Spider-Woman's web. Outside, unseen, the wind shifts across the mesas, and the stars seem to pulse in time with the chant. The boundary between above and below dissolves, until it feels as though the universe itself is singing through them. This is how the Hopi remember. Through ritual, through story, through sound. They do not look back on the past as something gone. They live within it, like seeds sleeping in the soil, waiting for the right moment to bloom again. You run your fingers along the rim of the Sipapu. The rock is cool, ancient, unyielding. Somewhere beneath, the old worlds still slumber. The buried echoes of civilizations that forgot their harmony. The thought is sobering. It is also familiar, because even now, the Hopi say, we live near the edge of forgetting once more. The elder's voice seems to drift from the darkness below. When we forget where we came from, the world begins to close. You sit in silence for a long while. Above, the stars wheel onward in their eternal paths. Below, the unseen realms breathe in quiet patience. And between them, you, a bridge between earth and sky. A being born of both light and shadow. At the horizon's edge, the first blush of morning begins to rise. It spills slowly across the desert floor, touching the cliffs. warming the cold stones. The colors return, red, amber, gold, as if the world itself is being reborn. You stand, brush the dust from your hands, and glance one last time at the sipapu. A single shaft of sunlight reaches it now, illuminating the opening in a perfect circle of gold. The earth seems to exhale. A prayer completed. In the distance, you hear the faint sound of bells, echoing from the mesa above. The morning call to awaken, to work, to live. The Hopi villagers are stirring, their day beginning with gratitude and quiet routine. Corn to grind, fields to tend, stories to tell, and always, always, the stars to remember. You turn back toward the path, feeling that hum again beneath your feet. The rhythm of footsteps, of heartbeats, of ancient worlds layered one atop another. The desert wind rises, carrying with it the faint murmur of song. You walk toward it. Ahead, the mesas blaze with dawn. Behind you, the sipapu fades into shadow, its dark circle blending with the earth. But you can still feel its pull. A quiet reminder that everything we are, everything we will be, began not in the heavens, but in the patient, dreaming heart of the ground beneath our feet. The sun climbs higher, and once again, the stars retreat beyond sight. Their stories, however, remain. They linger in the carvings on stone walls, in the spirals etched by hands that remembered the way upward. And as you walk toward those carvings, the horizon seems to shimmer with promise. The promise of time itself recorded in rock and light. The path bends, leading you toward the canyons where the ancestors carved their messages to eternity. There, the stone walls wait, covered in symbols that glimmer faintly under the rising sun. They whisper of movements older than language, of cycles measured not in days but in ages. The trail leads you downward again, following a dry riverbed that curves through the heart of the canyon. The stones here are sun-bleached and ancient, smoothed by centuries of wind and floodwater. You can feel the heat of the morning gathering in them already, though the sun has only just cleared the rim above. Somewhere behind you, the wind hums softly through a hollow in the cliffs, a sound like breath caught between words. You pause. The walls around you are red and immense, towering hundreds of feet into the sky. Their surfaces shimmer faintly with mineral dust, as if the earth itself were still sweating from the birth of the world. And then you see them. At first, they seem like shadows, lines and shapes cut so shallowly into the rock that you almost overlook them. But as the light shifts, the carvings reveal themselves. Spirals, suns, figures with outstretched hands, and dots clustered in constellations that mirror the night above. They are alive with motion, their edges soft from wind yet clear enough to speak. The air changes around them. Even the birds grow quiet. You are standing before the petroglyphs, the sky maps of the Hopi ancestors. They are not mere art. They are messages, time frozen in stone. The first spiral catches your eye. It begins small, tight, then unfurls outward in widening rings, like the breath of the universe itself. Your gaze follows its motion until it seems to move, swirling before your eyes, drawing you inward. To the Hopi, this symbol carries many meanings. The path of migration, the turning of seasons, the soul's journey from darkness into light. It is also a calendar, tracking the movement of the sun across the sky through the year. An elder once told you that every spiral is a story you must walk with your eyes. Start from the center, he said, for that is where you come from. Move outward carefully. Each curve is a lifetime, each turn a world. You reach out, tracing the spiral's edge with your fingertips. The stone is warm now. Tiny grains of sand cling to your skin like stardust. When you close your eyes, you can almost feel the pulse of time itself beating through the rock. The carvings stretch across the cliff face in clusters, some no larger than a handprint. others sprawling across entire slabs of sandstone. A few are simple, lines crossing like the beams of sunlight. Others are complex, woven with patterns that seem to shift the longer you look. You begin to recognize shapes. A turtle, symbol of endurance. A sunburst with radiating lines. The figure of a man with raised arms, as if greeting the heavens. These walls are not random. They are arranged like a dialogue, one image answering the next, like sentences carved in a language of stone. The Hopi say that long ago, their ancestors walked the lands of the Southwest, following the guidance of the stars. Wherever they camped, they marked the cliffs with signs to show they had been there. A record of their passage, a way for future generations to find their way home. But these carvings are not just memories of travel. They are maps, cosmic charts aligning the earth with the heavens. Here, a line points toward the horizon where the sun rises on the summer solstice. There, a circle marks the exact spot where the Pleiades disappear behind the mountains in spring. Every image is both art and measurement, myth and astronomy, prayer and mathematics interwoven. You imagine the artists who carved them. Figures crouched in the dawn light, chiseling carefully with stone tools, pausing to glance at the sky for reference. No haste, no carelessness. Every mark deliberate. Every groove a covenant between heaven and earth. The Hopi say these were not merely made by people. They were guided, inspired by beings who dwell beyond the visible sky. Each symbol was whispered into existence by the ancestors, who still walk unseen between the stars. You take a step back and notice a figure larger than the rest. It stands tall, its arms spread wide, its head crowned with rays of light. Around it, smaller symbols orbit like planets around a sun. This, the elder would tell you, is Tawa, the sun spirit, giver of warmth, of crops, of all breath. To carve Tawa into stone was not an act of worship, but of remembrance. It meant, we have not forgotten the light that gave us life. The morning deepens. Sunlight creeps higher on the canyon walls. And suddenly you notice something extraordinary. At this hour, one shaft of light pierces through a narrow slit in the rock above. It falls directly onto the center of a carved spiral, illuminating it with blinding precision. You realize you are witnessing what the Hopi call a sun dagger, a natural alignment used to mark the solstice. The light burns golden for a few minutes, then slides away, leaving the spiral in shadow once more. This was how the Hopi tracked time. Not with clocks, but with light. Each year, on this exact day, the same blade of sunlight would strike the same spot, announcing the turning of the seasons. It was their calendar, their compass, their way of keeping harmony with the universe. You sit back on your heels, overwhelmed. Time, you realize, is not a straight line here. It is circular, eternal, alive. These carvings are not just remnants of the past. They are still working, still keeping rhythm with the sun, still whispering their secrets to anyone who cares to listen. The canyon begins to fill with wind again. It moves through the stone corridors like an old voice, carrying with it the faint scent of rain. Perhaps from a storm miles away, a few raindrops strike the rock, darkening the petroglyphs until they gleam like wet skin. The images seem to shift again, as though reawakening under the touch of water. The Hopi believe that rain is the language of the spirits. Each drop is a syllable, each storm a conversation between sky and soil. In the old stories, when the people carved their prayers into stone, they would wait for rain to bless the images, to seal their meaning. Water, fire, stone, air. The four voices of the world joining to speak one truth. Remember who you are. The rain passes quickly. The sun returns, and the canyon smells of wet dust and juniper. You walk along the wall, tracing the path of carvings as they lead deeper into shadow. Some are faint now, their edges softened by time. Others are sharp, as though carved yesterday. It strikes you that generations of hands have touched these same marks, each one leaving a trace of oil and reverence. It is a chain of memory stretching back 1,000 years. As you move, the canyon narrows. The air cools, and you begin to hear a new sound. The faint drip of water echoing from somewhere unseen. You follow it until you reach a shallow alcove, where the walls are covered in a mosaic of symbols. Circles within circles. Zigzag lines that may be lightning. Rows of dots that could be stars. It feels like standing inside a cathedral of stone. Each mark a window into another age. A beam of sunlight slips across one particular carving. A cluster of 7 dots surrounded by a sweeping arc. You recognize it immediately. The Pleiades. The same stars that the Hopi call the Chuhukan. The homes of the ancestors. In Hopi tradition, the Pleiades mark the beginning of winter ceremonies. When they rise just before dawn, it is time to prepare the fields for rest. Time to remember the souls who have gone before. You stare at those 7 dots, and it feels as though the stone itself is breathing beneath your palm. The ancients carved this not just to mark a celestial event, but to remind the living that the heavens and the underworld are reflections of each other. The ancestors above, the spirits below, and the living, weaving between them, keeping the circle unbroken. The wind shifts again. Sand rustles along the ground like soft applause. You take a slow breath, and the realization settles gently upon you. These petroglyphs are not silent. They have never been silent. They are the desert's memory made visible, still singing through the ages. You stand for a long time, letting your eyes adjust to the rhythm of shadow and light. The canyon has become a clock without hands, marking time only through the movement of sun and sky. Every shadow tells a story. Every line remembers a song. As you turn to leave, you glance once more at the spiral. It glows faintly in the returning sunlight. Its center dark, its edges bright. It looks less like a drawing now, and more like an opening. A door back into everything that ever was. The wind rises, sending a swirl of dust across your path. It stings your skin, but it feels cleansing, not cruel. You follow the current out of the canyon, each step echoing like a heartbeat against the rock. The sky above you is vast again. It's blue, deep, and endless. Somewhere beyond that blue, the stars wait for night to fall, ready to reclaim their dialogue with the stone below. As you climb back toward the mesa, the sun lowers, casting long shadows that crawl like rivers over the desert floor. You glance back one last time at the canyon walls. For a brief moment, the carvings seem to shimmer, their forms shifting between stone and starlight, as though the earth itself were remembering. The desert night returns like an exhale. The sun's warmth fades from the stones, and the first threads of cool air weave through the canyons you've left behind. The moon has climbed higher now, thin, deliberate, almost shy. And around it, the darkness deepens to a velvet so pure it seems alive. You walk along the mesa rim, your footsteps muffled by sand and shadow. The carvings of the day still shimmer behind your eyelids, spirals and suns and dots that refuse to fade. And then, as you lift your gaze, you see them, the 3 bright points rising together in the east. Orion's belt. 3 stars so perfectly aligned. They look as if they were placed by hand. You stop, caught in the stillness of that sight. Every civilization that ever looked up at the sky has seen them. Egyptians built pyramids to mirror them. The Maya mapped their calendar around them. And here, in the Hopi mesas of Arizona, they were carved not just into stone, but into the very shape of the land. The elder's voice returns to you, carried by the desert wind. Look carefully, he once said. The heavens are written twice, once above, once below. If you learn to read both, you will see that they are one. You follow his words with your eyes. Orion's 3 stars form a perfect line. And below them, faint glimmers trace his shoulders and his knees. A constellation so precise it feels human, balanced, symmetrical, purposeful. But to the Hopi, Orion is more than a hunter chasing prey through the cosmos. He is Hotamkam, the spiritual guardian who connects the earth to the sky. The keeper of the path between worlds. The Hopi built their world in his image. High atop the mesas, their villages, Old Orabi, Shungapavi, Walpi, stand in a pattern that mirrors Orion's belt. If you trace them on a map, you can see it. 3 ancient settlements aligned exactly with those stars above. Not nearly so close together that it could be coincidence. Not far enough apart to be meaningless. It is precision carved into geography. Archaeologists noticed it too. They measured, charted, compared angles. They found that the alignment of the villages matched Orion's rising points on the horizon. During the winter solstice, a moment sacred to the Hopi, when the sun pauses before its return northward, and the people celebrate renewal. The villages were not placed at random. They were chosen, anchored to the heavens. You imagine the ancestors standing where you are now, watching the same 3 stars climb above the horizon thousands of years ago. The night air cold against their faces, their fires burning low behind them. Maybe they felt what you feel now, that the stars were not distant, but listening. For the Hopi, Orion is not merely a symbol of the sky. He is a guide, a bridge between cosmic and human time. His rising marks the beginning of winter ceremonies, his setting the turning towards summer. He walks the same seasonal rhythm the people do, a luminous companion in the great dance of the year. They say that when Orion appears, he carries messages from the star ancestors, those who came before the first world ended. He reminds the Hopi to look upward, not in longing, but in remembrance. Each ceremony that follows his rising is a renewal of their covenant with the universe. You stand there for a long time, watching the stars lift higher, feeling their pull, gentle but immense. The mesa beneath your feet feels alive, as if the rock itself recognizes the pattern above. And then you see something new. Below Orion's belt, a cluster of fainter stars forms a curve, his sword. In its center glows a tiny, misty light, the Orion Nebula. To astronomers, it is a nursery of stars, a cloud of gas and dust where new suns are born. To the Hopi, it is the breath of creation itself, a reminder that the cosmos is not fixed but constantly reborn. Some Hopi stories speak of beings who came from Orion, luminous teachers who guided the early people, helping them plant corn, build homes, and remember their place in the order of things. They are not imagined as conquerors or gods, but as kin, older siblings who visit from the sky to remind us of what we once knew. Their return, the elders say, will come when humanity forgets balance again. When the world tilts too far from the song, you close your eyes. In the darkness behind your eyelids, you can still see the 3 stars glowing. Their light soft but insistent. They pulse with rhythm, slow, steady, deliberate, like the heartbeat of the universe. For a moment you wonder whether that rhythm is also yours. A sound interrupts the stillness. It's faint at first, drums, somewhere below the mesa. You follow it, walking along the narrow trail that winds downward toward the village. As you draw closer, the drumming grows stronger, joined by low voices chanting in unison. The night air vibrates with the sound. Not music, but invocation. You reach the plaza. A fire burns at its center, surrounded by dancers moving in slow, circular steps. Their bodies are painted with patterns of white and blue, their masks shaped like stars. Each movement mirrors something you've seen before. A rising hand, a curve of the arm. The same geometry that forms Orion's outline in the sky. This is the soil ceremony, the great winter ritual that welcomes the sun's return and honors the constellations that guide it. You stand at the edge of the plaza, watching as the dancers raise their arms toward the stars. The elder is there again, his profile etched in firelight, his eyes glimmering like obsidian. He speaks softly, not to you, but to the heavens. The stars above us are not separate, he says. They are the same as those carved in the canyon, the same as those within our hearts. When we dance, the sky remembers its reflection. The drumming quickens. The dancers' movements become sharper, their feet striking the ground in rhythm. Dust rises around them, glowing red in the firelight. It looks like the surface of another world. You realize that each step, each motion, is an act of remembrance, a way of aligning the body with the cosmos, of becoming a moving constellation upon the earth. When the dance ends, the plaza falls silent except for the crackle of the fire. One by one, the dancers remove their masks, revealing faces streaked with sweat and ash. The elder steps forward and traces a line in the sand with his staff. 3 points connected by a single stroke. He looks at you, then up at the stars. This is the way of Orion, he says. Above and below. As it was, so it is. We build our homes where the light falls. He turns toward the horizon, where a faint glow marks the first breath of dawn. The stars begin to fade. Orion sinking slowly westward as if retreating into memory. The elder continues speaking, his words carried softly by the wind. When the world was young, our ancestors followed the stars across the land. They stopped where Orion rose brightest, and there they built. We are his reflection, a constellation made of stone and prayer. You look out across the mesas, and in the soft half-light of morning, you can almost see it. The alignment of villages stretching across the desert, their rooftops gleaming like scattered stars. It is as though the sky has lowered itself onto the earth, and the two have become one vast mirror. You feel a quiet awe, not of distance, but of belonging. The universe no longer feels vast and cold. It feels intimate, woven through with the same breath that fills your lungs. You realize that you are standing not beneath the stars, but within them. You are part of the pattern, part of the same grand design that connects sand to starlight, and heartbeat to orbit. The fire in the plaza burns lower, its flames curling around the last of the cedar logs. Smoke drifts upward, carrying the scent of resin and earth into the paling sky. You watch as it twists higher, fading into the same place where Orion's stars are disappearing. A final offering from earth to heaven. The elder smiles faintly. Now you see, he says, the stars walk among us, and we walk among them. We build, we plant, we dance, and the heavens take note. That is the connection. The sun breaks the horizon then, its first light touching the edges of the village. The walls of the stone houses glow gold, and the world seems to inhale, filling itself with warmth once more. You stand there, watching as night gives way to day. Orion is gone now, but his pattern lingers in your mind. 3 bright points burning against the darkness, eternal and precise. You think of the villages aligned to those same stars, of the carvings that mirror them in stone. And you understand what the Hopi have always known, that the sky and the earth are not separate realms, but a single story told in 2 directions. The sun rises higher, and with it the chill of night retreats into the canyon shadows. The air grows warmer, sharper, and the wind carries the faint rattle of dry grasses brushing against one another, a sound like whispers too ancient to translate. You walk onward across the mesa, past the last edge of shadow, until the desert opens before you in full daylight. From here, the horizon looks endless. The mesas in the distance glow like the backs of sleeping animals, their sides striped with the colors of time. Deep rust, pale gold. Bands of stone laid down by oceans that vanished millions of years ago. But the land does not feel empty. It feels deliberate. Every ridge, every hollow seems positioned, like the notes of a song frozen in the moment before it is sung. It is only now, as you climb a little higher, that you see how this world is not random at all. It is a mirror, a reflection of the heavens carved into the surface of the earth. The Hopi call it Tuwanasavi, the center of the world. To them, this plateau is not just home. It is the place where the sky and the soil touch, where the order of the universe is remembered through the act of living. You pause on the ridge. Below you lie the ancient villages. Orabi, Shungapavi, Walpi, built of stone and sun-dried mud, their flat roofs and terraced walls glowing beneath the early light. At first glance, they seem to have grown naturally from the rock, as if the desert itself decided to dream them into being. Their lines follow the contours of the mesas, their plazas shaped by wind and light as much as by human hands. There are no straight roads here, no imposed geometry of control, only curves, circles, and the subtle flow of pathways that move like rivers between houses. From above, the villages form patterns, not just Orion's belt, but other constellations too, mapped across the mesas like living diagrams of the sky. Archaeologists call them coincidences. The Hopi call them memory. You sit and watch as the sun crosses the eastern horizon. Its rays fall directly along the main street of the village below, cutting a line of gold that runs from one end to the other. This, you realize, is no accident. The Hopi built their homes in alignment with the path of the sun. Every doorway, every courtyard, every kiva was designed to mark the turning of light and shadow through the year. At the solstices, the first rays of dawn strike certain walls, certain windows, marking the passage of time, telling the people when to plant, when to rest, when to dance. Their homes are not shelters. They are instruments, devices that translate the motion of the heavens into the rhythm of life. You imagine a morning 1,000 years ago. A woman stands in her doorway, a bowl of cornmeal in her hands. She waits for the first light of the solstice to touch her threshold. When it does, she sprinkles the meal into the wind, whispering thanks to Tawa, the sun spirit, for returning once again. Her gesture is small, almost invisible. Yet through it, the cosmos turns smoothly forward. The wind rises around you now, sweeping dust into faint spirals that dance across the flat roofs below. You can smell the earth warming, a scent that is both dry and alive, like old wood caught in sunlight. From one of the plazas, you hear the faint sound of a drum, not for ceremony, but for rhythm, for the sheer pleasure of echoing the heartbeat of the world. Down in the fields below the mesa, green shoots of corn reach toward the sky. They glint faintly in the light, rows running perfectly parallel to the sun's arc. Even here, in the soil, the geometry of the heavens continues. The Hopi call corn the child of the sun, its stalks raised in imitation of light itself. When they plant, they do not think only of food. They think of pattern, of participation in the eternal conversation between the earth and the sky. As the day grows brighter, you begin to walk among the houses. Their walls are rough to the touch, the texture of baked clay mixed with straw. You run your fingers along them, and feel the heat collecting there like memory. Somewhere, a child's laughter echoes through the narrow streets, bouncing between the walls until it sounds like water splashing in a hidden stream. Life here moves slowly, purposefully, like the course of the stars themselves. You pass a small doorway leading into the cool shadow of a kiva. The air changes immediately. From heat to stillness. From brightness to deep, calm shade. Inside, the floor is smooth. The walls marked with faint traces of soot from centuries of fires. At the center lies a small hole. The Sipapu, the reminder of humanity's emergence from the underworld. Above it, a shaft of light falls through the opening in the roof, cutting a golden column through the darkness. Dust motes drift in it, spinning slowly like miniature planets. You crouch near the Sipapu, feeling once more that pull between above and below. Here, in this dim chamber, you can sense how the Hopi view the world not as layers of separation, but as circles nested within circles, each one reflecting the next, each one held in balance by ritual, by story, by gratitude. A kiva is not just a place of ceremony. It is a model of the universe. The floor is the earth, the roof, the sky, and that small hole between them, the bridge that reminds all beings of where they came from. When the Hopi gather here, they do not pray to the heavens. They pray with them. Every chant, every gesture, is an act of alignment. They believe that to maintain harmony, humans must mirror the order of the cosmos. To live well is to live as the stars move. With rhythm, with respect. Never too fast, never too slow. You close your eyes and listen. In the stillness, you can hear faint sounds from above. The wind scraping against stone. The murmur of footsteps. The soft call of a dove perched somewhere on the roof. It feels as though the world is breathing in tandem with you. When you step outside again, the light is brighter, sharper. The mesas glow almost white in the noon heat. You walk toward the edge of the village, where the land drops away into a broad expanse of desert. From this vantage, the world looks both vast and intimate. The horizon stretches forever. Yet the details, the curve of the hills, the scatter of stones, feel close enough to touch. You realize that this is what the Hopi mean when they speak of the earthly sky. It is not metaphor, not poetry. It is literal. The ground is an echo of the heavens. The stars are seeds planted in the soil of infinity, and humanity stands between them, tending both. As the afternoon wears on, the shadows lengthen. The shapes of the houses shift and stretch, becoming sundials, their angles telling silent stories of time. Children chase one another through the light, their laughter mingling with the low hum of wind. An elder sits outside her doorway, weaving a basket. The pattern she creates spirals outward from the center, mimicking the galaxy's curve. The same form carved on the canyon walls miles away. The stars, the stone, the basket, all the same design. The difference is only scale. You sit beside her for a while, watching the motion of her hands. Her fingers move quickly, unthinking, guided by memory more than sight. When she speaks, her voice is gentle, cracked by years of sun and smoke. "We are not beneath the sky," she says. "We are part of it. Each of us a small light, woven into the same basket." She ties off the final strand, runs her hand over the finished weave, and smiles faintly. The wind shifts again, bringing the scent of cedar and sage. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolls, a low, slow heartbeat beyond the horizon. Evening gathers. The sky turns from gold to violet, then deepens into indigo. The first stars appear, faint at first, then clearer, bolder, as though returning to check their reflection. From where you sit, you can see the faint glow of the village fires, their light mirroring the constellations above. Each flame below answers a star above. A conversation of brightness across the boundary of worlds. You lie back on the warm ground, the earth still holding the day's heat. The sky stretches infinitely overhead, and for a moment you cannot tell where land ends and stars begin. It is as though the whole world has folded into itself. A single, seamless map of light and shadow. The drums begin again somewhere in the village. Their rhythm slow, steady, echoing the heart. Each beat feels like a pulse from deep underground, rising through the soil, reaching into the heavens. You understand now why the Hopi say that the stars and the stones are kin. They are the same material, the same dust, the same fire, the same memory of creation. The night deepens. The elder's words return to you. The land and the stars, they are the same. You see it clearly now. The earth is not a stage beneath the heavens. It is the heavens made visible. And to live here, to walk these mesas, is to move inside a living constellation. A shooting star cuts across the sky, brief and brilliant, like a heartbeat made of light. You watch its trail fade and whisper a quiet thank you. Not for spectacle, but for reminder. The wind softens again, carrying with it the faint scent of rain and juniper. The drums slow, then fade into silence. The stars burn on, bright and eternal. And as you drift towards sleep beneath them, you realize that you are lying inside the greatest mirror of all. A world where every breath is sky, and every star a seed of earth. The first light of dawn returns once more, soft and deliberate, sliding across the edge of the mesa like a whisper that wakes the world. The stars dim and drift backward into their ancient hiding places, leaving the desert glazed with silver blue light. Somewhere in the stillness, a lone bird calls. A single, fragile sound that opens the day like a key. You rise from the ground, brushing the dust from your palms. The air tastes of new sunlight, a blend of cool stone and something faintly metallic, like the echo of rain on distant cliffs. The village is stirring. A soft clatter of wooden doors, the creak of ladders as figures descend from rooftops. The murmur of greetings carried gently by the morning breeze. You follow the path leading toward the far edge of the settlement, where the cliffs tilt eastward to greet the sun. Here the ground is uneven, dotted with stones arranged too precisely to be random. They rise from the earth in deliberate formations. Short walls stack pillars, slabs of sandstone positioned in lines and circles. At first, you think they're the remnants of old structures, ruins of some long-vanished dwelling. But as the sun climbs higher, you see it. A thin blade of light slicing between two stones, cutting a bright line across the ground. It doesn't fall anywhere by accident. It lands directly upon a flat rock, where a spiral has been carved deep into the surface. Its edges crisp despite the centuries. The light pierces its center, and the spiral begins to glow as if alive. You are standing inside a calendar of stone and shadow. The Hopi built these alignments to speak with the sun. No clockwork, no gears. Only rock, light, and patience. Through the course of the year, the sun travels north and south along the horizon, its rising and setting points shifting like the slow breath of the world. Each solstice, each equinox, the sunlight strikes these carvings in perfect synchrony, marking the passage of the seasons with silent precision. The elder appears beside you again, his shadow long and narrow in the growing light. He nods toward the spiral. "This is how we remember time," he says. "Not by counting days, but by watching how the sun touches the earth." He gestures to the line of stones stretching behind you. Each one casts a shadow, long now, shortening as the sun rises. "The shadows speak," he continues. "They tell us when to plant, when to harvest, when to prepare for the ceremonies of renewal. The sun is the heartbeat of the world. We listen to its rhythm." You kneel beside the spiral, tracing its grooves with your fingertips. The stone is warm already, its surface smooth where countless hands have done the same before you. The spiral's outer rings widen with each turn, each loop echoing the endless cycle of birth, death, and return. When sunlight meets its heart, it is said that the world breathes. The elder lowers himself onto the ground beside you. His eyes are bright and steady, their reflection holding the sun like a small flame. In our language, he says, we do not say time passes. We say the sun walks. Each day he takes one more step along his path. At the solstice he pauses, turns around, and begins again. It is not the world that moves, but our understanding of it. He leans forward, drawing lines in the dust with his fingertip. Each village has its watchers, he says, men who rise before dawn, to see where the sun will climb. They know every rock, every crack on the horizon. When the light touches the right place, they tell the people, it is time. Time for corn. Time for ceremony. Time for gratitude. You can almost see them, the sun watchers, standing at dawn on high ledges, their eyes narrowed against the glare. They wait, motionless, until the first rays appear. When the light strikes a specific notch or stone marker, they nod once, then turn to call down to the village. And so, through nothing but observation and devotion, the Hopi kept the calendar of the cosmos alive. You look back at the spiral, its glow fading now as the sun rises beyond alignment. The blade of light slides slowly off its surface, and the shadow of the standing stones shifts with it. A slow dance that will repeat tomorrow, and the day after, forever. The elder watches the motion quietly. Our ancestors understood that time is not a line, he says. It is a circle. Every day returns to where it began. We walk it again and again. Each step another chance to remember balance. He rises, dusts his hands, and begins to walk toward a nearby cliff wall. You follow him through a narrow passage, where the sunlight flickers between stones, creating patterns of brightness and shade that ripple like water. At the far end, the rock opens into a small alcove. On its wall, lines are etched in pairs, one horizontal, one slanted, intersecting precisely where the sunbeam now rests. He points to them. These are the markings of the solstice, he says, when the sun stands still. In summer, its path is long. In winter, it is short and sharp. We do not fear the dark season, for it tells us the light will return. The light shifts again, and one of the carvings glows momentarily before falling into shadow. The movement is so precise it feels deliberate, as though the rock itself were keeping time. You realize this isn't a monument to the sun. It is a conversation with it. The Hopi did not separate science from spirit. To measure the heavens was to pray. To mark the movement of light across a stone was to reaffirm the covenant between human life and cosmic order. Every shadow, every glimmer, was sacred language. You step outside again. The sun is high now, its heat pressing against your skin. You squint across the vast expanse of desert, a landscape that seems unchanging, yet in truth shifts with every hour of light. Shadows crawl across the land, marking time as precisely as any clock. You begin to understand how the Hopi saw eternity in the ordinary. The daily motion of light across rock, the tilt of a shadow on sand, far below the mesa. Fields of corn shimmer in the distance. From this height, the rows form elegant curves, tracing the contour of the land. Each stalk bends ever so slightly toward the sun, turning throughout the day in quiet choreography. Even the crops are part of the solar dialogue, green prayers growing toward the light. A memory returns, the woman sprinkling cornmeal in her doorway, her gesture timed to the sun's first light. You realize that her small act was also a kind of astronomy. To greet the dawn at the exact moment it crests the horizon. That is precision. That is devotion. The elder speaks again, softly now, as though to the wind. When we forget to watch the sun, he says, we forget to listen to the world. And when we forget to listen, the seasons lose their balance. He turns his gaze toward the horizon, where a faint shimmer of heat rises like liquid air. There are stories, he continues, of times when people stopped watching, when greed and haste blinded them. The fields dried. The rain ceased. That is why we still keep the stones, to remind us that light is not ours to command. It is a gift to be noticed. The words settle into the silence like dust. You watch the sunlight flicker across the desert floor. Its slow, patient crawl reminding you of all the centuries that have passed, without the need for anything more than shadow to mark them. As the day drifts toward noon, the heat deepens, and the horizon begins to waver in a haze of gold. You sit quietly with the elder, both of you watching the light shift on the stones. There is no hurry here. No ticking, no rush. Only the measured turning of the world. The same rhythm that guided every generation before. At last, the elder stands. He shades his eyes with his hand, looking once more toward the great sky that blazes without cloud. Come, he says. It is time to meet those who keep the memory of this light. He begins walking back toward the village, his shadow stretching long and thin before him. You follow, feeling the pulse of the desert beneath your feet. That low, humming heartbeat that seems to connect every grain of sand. Each step brings you closer to the place where the watchers of the sun wait. Those who still read the language of light and shadow. Who know when the year turns, when the world breathes in, and when it exhales. And as you walk, the spiral of the calendar lingers in your mind. A symbol alive and endless. You realize that the sun will fall upon it again tomorrow, and the next day, and long after every name has been forgotten. The light will keep walking its ancient path, and the stones will keep listening. The wind rises behind you, carrying a few grains of sand that sting your cheek. A gentle reminder that even the smallest motions mark time. You glance upward once more. The sky is blinding, infinite. You can almost see the next turning of the circle, the next phase in the dance of cosmic order. Ahead, beyond the edge of the mesa, you glimpse the shadowed entrance of Akiva, the gathering place of those who measure dawn itself, the keepers of time. You move toward it slowly, the horizon shimmering like molten glass. The elder's footsteps steady beside yours. The light has ripened into gold by the time you reach the kiva. It rests in a hollow at the base of the mesa, round, low-walled, half buried in the earth. The air around it feels cooler, denser, as though you've stepped out of the hour's glare into the breathing memory of stone. There is a ladder leading down through the opening in its roof, polished smooth by generations of hands. You place your palms upon it, and the wood is warm from sunlight, but worn like silk. You descend slowly, leaving the blaze of day behind for the tempered glow below. Inside, it smells of cedar smoke and dust, an aroma of centuries. The chamber's walls curve like the inside of a shell, their surface painted with faint ochre lines, arcs, circles, and the traces of long-vanished fingerprints. At the center of the floor, the sipapu yawns, a small dark opening leading downward into the heart of the world. Beside it burns a single coal, a dull ember that pulses softly, its light mirrored in the eyes of the men who sit around it in silence. These are the sun watchers, the Hopi's keepers of time. Their hair is streaked with gray, their hands calloused, their faces lined in the gentle pattern of seasons. They do not wear regalia or crowns. Their authority is quieter, rooted not in power, but in patience. They are the listeners of light, The ones who rise before the dawn to hear what the horizon will say. The elder who has guided you bows his head to them. This one has come to learn, he says. The oldest of the watchers gestures for you to sit. You take your place beside the fire. And the room grows still again. A silence so deep it hums. After a time, the oldest man speaks. His voice is low, measured. Each word dropped carefully into the air like a stone into water. We are the ones who wait for the sun, he says. Our fathers waited before us. And their fathers before them. When the first light touches the world, we listen to its story. It tells us what kind of year it will be. He picks up a small stick of cedar and presses it into the coal. Flame blooms, trembling yellow. He holds it aloft. And the shadows of the kiva shift, stretching across the curved walls like slow waves. Every shadow has meaning, he continues. When it falls too far to the north, we know the cold is coming. When it drifts south, we prepare for heat and rain. We have no calendars, no clocks. Only the movement of light. He gestures toward a notch in the wall. A small window cut into the eastern side of the kiva. At this hour, sunlight pours through it in a narrow beam, striking a white mark painted beside the sipapu. Here, he says, is where the sun's first finger enters. At the solstice, its touch moves closer to the center. At the equinox, it lies directly on the line. We have watched this since the beginning. You can see it now. The way the beam trembles slightly as it meets the mark. A single heartbeat of light connecting heaven to stone. To anyone else, it would look like accident. Here, it is the whisper of the universe keeping its own schedule. The elder beside you closes his eyes. The watchers carry this knowledge like water, he says softly. They pour it from one generation to the next. Never too much, never too little. Enough to keep the world in rhythm. The air feels charged, as though the very act of watching holds power. You realize how much discipline this role demands. To wake before the sun every day of your life. To wait in perfect stillness. To see not just with the eyes, but with the mind that remembers. The old man speaks again. When we say the sun rises, he murmurs, we do not mean he climbs for himself. He rises for the people, for the corn, for the balance of all things. And so we rise for him. He smiles faintly, and the light catches the lines around his eyes. When I was young, he says, I thought watching the sun was simple. I thought all you needed were clear skies and a good place to stand. But the sun is like a person. He changes. He hides behind clouds. He lingers when you least expect it. It takes many years to learn his moods. He laughs softly, a dry, musical sound. When he hides too long, the people worry. They ask, have we done wrong? Then we tell them, no. The sun rests, as we must. We remind them that everything has rhythm. Even the light needs to sleep. The watchers fall silent again. You can hear the faint hum of wind moving across the opening above. The slow hiss of sand falling against the stones. The small fire flickers. And for a moment, the entire chamber feels alive. Breathing, listening, waiting. The elder at your side gestures for you to stand. He leads you up the ladder, back into the blaze of noon. The world outside feels impossibly bright, as if the sun were proving its presence with every ray. You blink against the glare. On the mesa's edge, a younger watcher kneels beside a flat rock. He squints toward the horizon, a thin piece of bone held before his eye to measure the light's angle. You watch him tilt it slightly, then press a line into the sand with a stick. He marks the sun's height, then smooths the surface again, erasing the trace in preparation for tomorrow. This is how the Hopi have measured time for centuries. Not by hoarding its moments, but by letting them pass. trusting that each will return. The elder points toward the young man. Every watcher begins as a listener, he says. He listens to the wind first, then the birds, then the silence between dawn and day. Only after many seasons does he learn to listen to the sun. He looks at you, his expression patient, curious. What do your people use to keep time? He asks. You think of clocks, of glowing screens and digital numbers that count relentlessly forward. You think of how time has become something to chase rather than observe. You hesitate before answering. We watch our devices. You say quietly. They tell us what hour it is. The elder nods once. Then your people are rich in minutes, he says, but poor in dawns. You feel the truth of it sink like a stone. The watcher on the mesa finishes his marking. He stands, stretches his back, and gazes toward the distance where the horizon trembles in heat. You follow his gaze. There, the sun glows white and immense, its radiance softened by the faint shimmer of rising dust. It looks eternal, a god too vast to notice the small world spinning below. And yet you realize, these people have lived their entire existence by his smallest gestures. A tilt of his light determines the rhythm of planting and prayer, the pattern of survival itself. The elder beside you shades his eyes. In our stories, he says, the first people asked Sotukneng how they would know when to live and when to rest. He told them, watch my footsteps in the sky. So we watch. We never stopped. He kneels and picks up a handful of sand. The grains glitter as they fall through his fingers. The sun marks the day, he says. The moon marks the month. But the heart marks the moment. He lets the last of the sand slip away, then presses his palm flat against the ground. Here, he whispers, time does not move forward. It moves through us. You close your eyes. The sunlight presses against your eyelids like warmth made visible. You feel your heartbeat slow, matching the rhythm of the wind, matching the low hum that seems to rise from the earth itself. It's as if the world is counting with you. Not seconds, but breaths. When you open your eyes again, the watchers are gathering their tools. Their small wooden sticks and smooth stones. They move without urgency. Their gestures practiced, familiar. In a few moments, they will leave the mesa and descend to the village to join the others. They will eat, rest, laugh softly at the day's small happenings. And tomorrow, before the horizon blooms again, they will climb back to this place and wait once more. The circle will continue. Unbroken, effortless, eternal. The elder turns to you and smiles. You have seen how we measure, he says. But remember, to measure is not to control. It is to witness. He looks toward the sinking sun, its arc already leaning toward the west. Soon, he says, the stars will return. And with them, the prophecies written long ago. Messages carved not in stone, but in light. He begins walking back toward the village. You follow, your shadow stretching long beside his. Two lines of darkness moving with the same rhythm as the setting day. Behind you, the kiva glows faintly, its opening filled with the last gold of afternoon. You can still feel the hum of the watcher's work. The balance they keep simply by observing. The desert wind grows stronger, lifting dust into the air until it sparkles like powdered sunlight. Each mote seems suspended in time, each one a fragment of something ancient and continuous. As you descend the path toward the village, the first cool breath of evening touches your face. You glance upward, the sky deepening again to violet, the edges of the world softening into shadow. Somewhere far above, the stars are beginning to stir. Evening falls like a slow breath drawn by the earth itself. The mesa cools beneath your feet. The heat of the day escapes into the wind. A soft hush settles over the desert, the kind of silence that is not emptiness, but listening. The horizon melts from gold to violet, from violet to blue so deep it could drown a thought. The first stars appear timidly, then with confidence, each one a spark relit from the long memory of creation. You watch them rise, and in their gathering you feel the pulse of an old story returning. A story the Hopi have told since the beginning of this world. The elder walks beside you still. He says nothing at first. You can hear his sandals brushing the sand. The quiet rasp of breath that sounds like the whisper of the wind through dry corn stalks. When he finally speaks, his voice carries a weight that feels older than the stones around you. Look up, he says. The stars are not only memories. They are warnings. You tilt your head. Above you, the night unfolds. Orion already climbing. The Pleiades glittering like a handful of seeds scattered across black soil. Each point of light feels intentional, as though it has chosen to be seen. The Hopi have always known. The elder continues, that the sky speaks of what is, what was, and what may come again. It is not superstition. It is observation written in eternity. He gestures toward the Milky Way, that luminous river of stars flowing across the heavens. To us, that is Palalakang, the path of souls. When this world ends, the spirits walk that road back to the beginning. But it is also a reminder. The same way the stars travel in their endless circle, so do we. When balance is lost, the circle must break and begin anew. The fire from the village plaza flickers in the distance below, tiny against the vastness of the desert. Its light seems fragile, almost human, like a single heartbeat compared to the pulse of the galaxy above. The elder begins to walk again, his steps slow, measured. You follow him toward a rise where the land opens to the full sweep of sky. There he stops, kneels, and begins to draw in the dust. He sketches 4 circles, one inside the next. This is the story of the worlds, he says. The first, second, and third are gone, each destroyed when people forgot their place in the order. Fire took the first, ice the second, water the third. Now we live in the fourth. And even this one is fragile. You look at the circles glowing faintly in the moonlight. The outermost, he traces slowly with his finger. When we forget to honor the balance between sky and earth, the world trembles. The signs begin in the heavens. That is how we know the time of cleansing approaches. He leans back, his eyes turned upward again. The prophecies say the stars will fall out of order. The constellations will shift, and a blue star will appear, a new light in the sky. When that star comes, the fifth world will be near. You feel the night change around you. The air seems thicker, charged with the weight of unseen things. You glance upward, half expecting to see that star already shining among the others. The elder's voice softens. Do not think it will be punishment, he says. It will be correction. When the world forgets how to live in harmony, the universe remembers for us. He begins to tell the stories passed from elder to elder. Of the blue star Kachina, a spirit who dances in the heavens to signal the great turning. Of the day when the earth will shake, when rivers will change their paths, and when the sky itself will seem to open like a door. These are not stories to frighten children, he says. They are instructions. Reminders of how to live so that the world does not have to end again. The fire below flickers brighter as the wind shifts. Its light wavers across the elder's face, catching in his eyes like twin reflections of the stars. Our ancestors left us signs, he says. In the petroglyphs, in the alignments, in the songs. They said, if the sun and moon no longer follow their path, if winter and summer come as one, if the people turn their hearts away from the sky, then know that the time of renewal has begun. He pauses, listening to the night. A distant rumble of thunder rolls across the horizon. Faint and slow, the smell of rain rides the wind, carrying that strange sweetness that only desert storms bring. Like dust remembering it was once water. The elder's gaze doesn't waver. The Hopi do not fear the prophecies, he says. We prepare for them. Every ceremony, every song, every offering of cornmeal. These are our way of keeping the world balanced a little longer. When we pray, we are not asking the gods to save us. We are reminding ourselves how to stay worthy of this world. You sit beside him, watching the storm clouds form on the edge of the horizon. Lightning flickers in silence, its pale fingers reaching across the sky like messages written in light. You realize that here, prophecy is not about doom. It is about remembering. The elder turns toward you, his voice quiet but clear. The stars hold our stories, he says. When they move, they do not change the future. They reveal it. But it is we, the people, who decide what that revelation means. He looks again to the heavens. When the blue star comes, the world will not simply end. It will change. Some will fear it. Others will recognize it as return. The coming of harmony restored. The sky does not destroy. It corrects. The wind rises suddenly, sweeping through the grass, pulling your breath with it. The elder closes his eyes, tilting his face toward the storm. The old ones said we were given one last chance in this world. He murmurs, this is the fourth. The last before the next great cleansing. If we forget again, the earth will turn over, and only those who remember the stars will find their way back. You feel a strange ache behind your ribs. Not fear, but recognition. The rhythm of his words feels like something you already knew. Something buried deep beneath the layers of noise and time. Above, the clouds break open just enough for the stars to shine through. They glitter brighter now, as if responding to the storm's pulse. One particularly bright star catches your attention, its light trembling against the blackness. For a moment, it looks blue. The elder smiles, as though reading your thought. Do you see? He whispers. Even the warnings are beautiful. They remind us that endings are beginnings in disguise. The rain begins to fall then, slow, sparse drops at first, each one striking the dust with a soft hiss. The air cools instantly, and the smell of wet stone fills your lungs. You watch the droplets darken the sand around the elder's drawings, blurring the circles until they melt together. It feels symbolic. The worlds dissolving into one another. Time folding into time. He rises carefully, his joints stiff but steady. Come, he says. The stars have spoken enough for tonight. Let the rain take their words into the soil. Tomorrow the people will sing again. That is how we keep the balance. You walk beside him through the storm. The lightning grows stronger now, flashing behind the clouds in ghostly silence. The thunder follows a few moments later, rolling through the canyons like a drumbeat echoing the ceremonies below. Each flash of light reveals the desert in silver and shadow. Rocks gleaming wet, sagebrush trembling, the earth drinking eagerly from the sky. When you reach the village, the fires still burn in the plaza, hissing softly beneath the rain. The people are gathered under awnings and doorways, their voices low and rhythmic, a chant carried on the heartbeat of the storm. You realize they are not sheltering from the rain. They are welcoming it. It is, after all, another message from the heavens. You stand at the edge of the plaza as the elder steps forward, raising his hand toward the sky. Rain runs down his arm, sparkling in the firelight. He speaks a single phrase in Hopi, his voice barely louder than the wind. You don't understand the words, but you know their meaning. A thank you? A promise. The lightning flickers once more. And then the storm begins to drift away. Its rumble fading into distance. The air smells clean, renewed. The sky above clears again, revealing the same patient stars. Nothing destroyed. Nothing lost. Only the eternal reminder that light always returns. The elder turns to you. The prophecies are not fate, he says quietly. They are choices. Each of us is a note in the same song. When we live out of tune, the melody falters. When we listen, it becomes whole again. He smiles faintly, his eyes reflecting the stars. Remember that, he adds, because the next song we must sing is to the heavens themselves. A song of invitation and gratitude. A ceremony not of fear, but of harmony. He begins to walk toward the plaza, where drums begin to beat again, soft, circular, like rain returning as rhythm. You follow him, feeling the cool stone under your feet, the pulse of the earth beneath it, and above, the stars watching, not as judges, but as witnesses. The wind carries the first notes of chant through the night. They rise and fall with the steady grace of breath, weaving into the hum of the universe itself. The people lift their faces to the sky, and the stars seem to answer, their light shimmering in perfect time. The rain has passed, leaving the desert washed in silver. The air is cool now, cleansed of dust, carrying the scent of sage and wet earth. Puddles glimmer between the stones like fragments of the night sky fallen to the ground. Each one holds a perfect reflection of the heavens above. 1,000 stars trembling gently in their mirrored water. It feels as though the earth itself is dreaming upward, echoing the constellations it has always followed. The elder walks beside you in silence, his robe damp against his ankles. Ahead, the village stirs again. The fires in the plaza, once dimmed by rain, are rekindled. Smoke rises in thin, elegant strands, carrying prayers upward to meet the fading storm. You hear voices now, low, rhythmic, purposeful. Not conversation, but invocation. The ceremonies of the sky are beginning. As you enter the plaza, you see it transformed. Torches flicker along the edges, casting golden halos over the damp stones. The people move with slow grace, arranging themselves into circles. Their faces are calm, luminous in the firelight. Children sit beside elders, their eyes wide and unblinking, as if they already know that what is about to happen is not performance, but conversation with the universe. The air hums with quiet anticipation. You feel it in your skin, a low vibration that seems to rise from the ground itself. And then, a drumbeat. Soft at first, then steady. A heartbeat echoing through the bodies of everyone present. The dancers step forward, men and women together, bare feet pressing gently into the wet earth. Their garments are painted with the colors of the horizon: ochre, turquoise, white, black. Echoes of dawn, day, dusk, and night. Feathers shimmer at their wrists and ankles, and from their belts hang tiny bells that chime with every movement. A sound like starlight turned into metal. The first chant begins. Low, melodic, circular. It has no beginning and no end. The voices of the men rise and fall like the tide, and the women's voices flow above them, high and pure, like wind between canyon walls. The sound seems to lift the firelight itself, causing the flames to sway in time. The elder speaks softly beside you, his eyes fixed on the dancers. This is how we remember who we are, he says. Through the ceremonies, the people and the sky speak to each other again. We sing to the stars, and the stars answer with rain, with sunlight, with breath. He gestures toward the circle of dancers. Each step is a prayer. He murmurs, each turn a verse in the song of creation. You watch as they move, slow, deliberate, their bodies tracing the same spirals carved into canyon walls. The dust rises in soft clouds around their feet, caught in the light like galaxies forming in miniature. The rhythm grows stronger, and for a moment, you forget where you end and the dance begins. This is not a performance for spectators. It is a dialogue, a renewal of the bond between heaven and earth. The Hopi say that if they were ever to stop dancing, the world itself would fall silent, forgetting the steps that keep it turning. One dancer carries a gourd rattle painted with stars. He shakes it toward the sky, and the sound shivers through the air. A delicate, crystalline music that seems to summon the constellations closer. The others follow, lifting their arms as if to cradle the stars. Their movements are perfectly timed, the precision of centuries practiced in every gesture. You notice the sky responding, or perhaps you only imagine it. The clouds thin, and more stars emerge, brighter than before. The Milky Way unfurls across the heavens like a vast ceremonial blanket. It feels alive, as though it is watching, listening, perhaps even singing back. A woman steps forward from the circle, her voice rising above the drumbeat. It is the voice of the storm, the river, the wind itself. She sings of the sun spirit, Tawa, and his endless journey across the sky. She sings of his rest in the west, and of his promise to return. Each note seems to travel upward into the dark, carrying light with it. The elder whispers. She sings to remind him of us, so that the sun will not forget to rise again. Another dancer joins her, his mask painted half white, half blue. He represents the Katsina, the cloud spirits who bring rain and balance. His steps are light and intricate, his movements graceful and unpredictable, like the motion of wind before a storm. Around him, others appear in masks of eagle, deer, and bear, each embodying a force of nature. Together, they form a living constellation, a reflection of the cosmos made flesh. The air trembles with sound now. Drums, rattles, song, the soft hiss of wind through feathers. It feels as though the entire world is vibrating at one frequency. You glance at the faces of the watchers around you, and you see tears gleaming in some eyes, smiles in others. Each person here carries a piece of the sky within them, and tonight those pieces are shining. The ceremony builds, reaches its quiet peak, then slowly softens. The drumming slows. The singers' voices fall to murmurs. The dancers stop moving, their arms lifted one last time toward the heavens. They hold that stillness, that delicate moment between one heartbeat and the next, until even the wind seems to hesitate. Then the elder steps forward. He carries a small bowl of cornmeal, the same white powder that has fed prayers for generations. He sprinkles it gently into the air. The grains catch the firelight, floating upward before vanishing into the night. Each particle, he says, is a thought sent to the stars, a reminder that the people below still remember. You can hear him murmuring a prayer. His voice is low, the syllables rolling like water over stones. It is not pleading. It is gratitude. Gratitude for the rain that came, for the sun that will return, for the rhythm that still holds the world together. As the last note fades, the dancers remove their masks. Their faces are peaceful, glowing with sweat and moonlight. Children run forward to help them gather the feathers and rattles, their laughter returning sound to the silence. The ceremony is complete, but its echo lingers. In the air, in the stars, in you. The elder turns to you, his eyes reflecting both fire and starlight. This is how we keep balance, he says quietly. We dance not to bring the sky down, but to lift our hearts up to it. When we move, we remind the universe that it still has meaning. and it remembers. He glances upward. The stars are steady now. Their light unbroken. The world forgets sometimes, he says. It rushes, builds, destroys. But the stars, they do not hurry. They keep their ceremony perfectly, turning in their own slow dance forever. We only try to keep pace. He falls silent. You find yourself watching the same sky he does. Infinite, ancient, impossibly alive. Somewhere far above, Orion leans over the desert once more. The Pleiades shimmer softly to his right. You remember the carvings in the canyon, the spirals in the stone, the alignments that mark solstices in time. Every story, every ritual, every carving leads back to this. The connection between heaven and earth, renewed again and again through song and motion. The drums resume, softer now, carrying the dancers' rhythm into the night. The people begin to disperse, moving slowly, reverently, as if unwilling to break the fragile bond that still hums between them and the stars. The elder lingers a while longer, then turns toward the narrow path leading out of the plaza. Come, he says. There is more to see, more that lives in the sky's memory. You have heard our songs. Now you must hear the stories of those who first sang them. He looks up once more before leaving. The ceremonies call the ancestors home, he says. They are listening tonight. You follow him into the quiet beyond the fires. The sound of the drums fades behind you, replaced by the whisper of wind and the faint trill of nocturnal insects awakening after the rain. Above, the stars burn fiercely, their light reflecting in the still pools left by the storm. Each reflection looks like an eye watching from another world. Calm, patient, full of knowing, the elder walks ahead, his silhouette framed by the shimmering horizon. He does not look back, but his voice drifts to you through the darkness. The next part of our journey belongs to the oldest of our teachers, he says, the ones who came not from beneath the ground, but from beyond the sky itself. They taught us how to live in balance. They are still watching. You glance up, and for a heartbeat, the stars seem closer, as if the veil between worlds has thinned once more. Your breath catches. The wind quiets. The night waits. And somewhere between the pulse of your heart and the vast hum of the universe, you feel it. A presence. Ancient. Gentle. A warmth that seems to reach from the stars themselves. The path narrows as you follow the elder away from the village. The drums fade behind you until they are nothing more than echoes, woven into the night wind. The air is cooler now, still carrying the faint scent of wet earth and smoke from the ceremonial fires. Overhead, the stars shine with impossible clarity, each one bright, unwavering, suspended in a vast silence that feels less like emptiness and more like waiting. You walk together without speaking. The desert stretches wide and endless around you, the sand soft beneath your feet, the horizon shimmering faintly beneath a veil of starlight. Every step feels deliberate, as though you are being led towards something that has been waiting for you, long before your own memory began. At last, the elder stops beside a great stone that juts from the earth, like the prow of a ship rising from sand. Its surface is covered in carvings, not the spirals or suns you've seen before, but figures. Tall beings with long limbs, their heads surrounded by halos of lines that resemble rays of light. Some hold shapes that look like stars. Others raise their hands toward the heavens, as though greeting old friends. These, the elder says softly, are our oldest relatives. You move closer. The moonlight glides across the stone, filling the carvings with pale silver. The figures seem almost to shimmer, their forms caught between stillness and motion. They look both human and not, their eyes large and knowing, their posture filled with calm purpose. The star ancestors, He continues. They came when the world was new, when the first people had emerged from the underworld, but had not yet learned how to live upon the surface. They were not gods, not demons, not spirits to be feared. They were teachers. He runs his hand over one of the carvings, tracing the outstretched arm of a figure that points upward. They showed our ancestors how to plant corn, how to read the sky, how to listen to the earth. They taught us the ceremonies that call for balance, and the songs that remind the rain where to fall. You can hear reverence in his voice, but also something more. The quiet certainty of one who does not separate myth from memory. He steps back and gestures to the heavens. Many people from far away speak of them now, he says. They call them visitors, travelers from the stars. But to us, they were never strangers. They were family who remembered us before we remembered ourselves. You look up. The Milky Way glows like a river of frost, spilling from horizon to horizon. Its shape echoes the stone carvings below. The same curve, the same endless flow. The elder watches your gaze. They came from there, he says, pointing toward the bright cluster of the Pleiades. We call them the Chihukan, the homes of our ancestors. When the stars rise in winter, we know they are watching, reminding us to rest, to give thanks, to prepare for the seasons ahead. He crouches and draws a circle in the sand with his fingertip. At its center, he presses a small stone. This is us, he says, here in the fourth world. And around us, the stars, our elder brothers. We are never alone. The universe breathes through us. You kneel beside him, feeling the night pressing close. The hush of the desert deep and tender. In the distance, a coyote calls once, its voice rising like a thin ribbon of silver sound. The elder smiles faintly. Even he remembers them. He murmurs. The star ancestors taught all living things, not just people. He begins to tell you an older story, one so ancient it sounds less like speech, and more like the rhythm of the wind over stone. When the people first came into this world, he says, they were lost. They wandered without knowing how to live upon the dry land. Their eyes were still weak from the darkness below, and they could not see the stars clearly. So the star people descended. They came not in ships, but in light, in the beams of the morning sun, in the fire that dances upon water, in the dreams of those who were ready to listen. They did not speak with words, but with understanding. They showed the people how to make homes that breathe with the wind, how to weave water and light into ritual, how to shape stone into mirrors of the heavens. They said, the earth beneath you and the sky above you are the same body. You are the breath between them. He pauses, letting the words settle into the night air. You feel the truth of them not as explanation, but as memory, as if your own bones recognize the story. Then one day, the elder continues, they returned to the sky, but they left signs of their passing. They marked the canyons and the mesas, so that when we saw the same patterns above, we would know how to live below. You look again at the carvings, and suddenly you see them differently. The spirals, the stars, the hands reaching upward. They are not merely decorations. They are coordinates. A celestial map meant to teach those who remember how to read it. The elder stands brushing sand from his robe. They promised they would return, he says, when the stars shift in a certain way. When the people of the fourth world forget too much, they will come again to remind us of who we are. He looks at you, and his eyes seem to carry the reflection of every star in the sky. Do not think they will come in thunder or flame. He adds softly, they will come in silence, in the mind that awakens, in the heart that remembers balance. You both fall silent. The only sound now is the wind slipping between the rocks, making a sound like breath caught in song. The desert glows faintly under the moon, every pebble casting a tiny shadow. You realize that everything around you, stone, air, even the spaces between, feels alive with presence. The elder begins to hum quietly, a melody that rises and falls like the motion of the stars themselves. It is not a song you can follow, but one you can feel. A vibration that seems to move through the earth beneath you, through your chest, through the open sky. It feels both alien and deeply familiar, like hearing your own heartbeat mirrored in another language. He stops suddenly and looks up again. "Do you see them?" he asks. At first, you think he means the stars. But then, you notice faint movements in the sky. Soft glimmers that seem to shift where no clouds pass. Not streaks like meteors, but subtle pulses of light, appearing and vanishing as though breathing. Your pulse quickens. "They are here," the elder whispers. "Not as beings of flesh, but as memory, as guidance." You stare, transfixed, watching those soft lights blink and fade, their rhythm unhurried, their pattern deliberate. Each pulse feels like a heartbeat from another age, a reassurance that the universe is still aware of itself. "They remind us," the elder says, "that we come from the stars, and to the stars we will return. The same dust that burns in their light flows in our blood. The same fire that made them burns quietly behind our eyes." He closes his eyes then, and the wind moves through his gray hair like a benediction. "For many generations," he says, "the people have carried this knowing, even when others forgot. We kept the stories. The star ancestors never left. They only changed their form. Now they live within our remembering." He looks to the horizon, where the faintest trace of dawn begins to stir. A wash of pale blue behind the dark ridges. "Soon," he says, "the night will give way to light again. But do not think the stars disappear. They remain, waiting behind the sun's fire, just as the ancestors wait within our hearts." You stand beside him as the first light touches the desert. The carvings on the stone glow faintly gold now, the star figures seeming almost to step forward from their ancient rest. You feel a strange warmth rise in your chest, a quiet joy mixed with awe. It is not the feeling of learning something new, but of remembering something you've always known, that you are part of this same immense lineage, woven from light, dust, and memory. The elder begins walking again, his pace slow but steady. You follow, glancing back once at the carvings. In the brightening dawn, they seem to shimmer, not as relics, but as mirrors. Each figure, each line, reflects your own outline against the morning sky. As you walk, the elder speaks one final time before the silence of sunrise overtakes you. "The star ancestors taught us that knowledge is not to be owned, but to be lived," he says. "They showed us that the greatest wisdom is not written in stone or book, but carried in the way we walk upon the earth, and the way we look up at the night." He smiles faintly, the light of dawn brushing his face. "Come," he says. "There are other signs you must see. Marks left upon the cliffs by those who remembered the stars before us. They are the symbols in stone, the words our ancestors carved, so the sky would never forget our story." The wind rises behind you, lifting the last chill of night away. The stars fade, but their memory lingers in the glow spreading across the desert. You feel it in your bones, in the rhythm of your steps, in the quiet assurance that every grain of sand, every spark of light, is part of the same great conversation, one that began long before time itself, and will never end. The dawn arrives without sound. A pale wash of rose and gold spills across the horizon. touching the mesas with light so soft it feels like breath. The air is cool and clean after the night's rain, and every grain of sand glitters as if the desert has been dusted with stars. You follow the elder eastward, his steps slow but unwavering, toward a canyon whose walls rise like great, folded wings from the earth. As the sun climbs, its first rays strike the rock face ahead, and the stone awakens. Patterns begin to emerge from shadow. Circles within circles, zigzag lines that shimmer like lightning, and spirals that seem to move even though they are carved into stillness. Figures appear among them. Hands, suns, animals, stars. Some are faint, eroded by centuries of wind and light, but others remain sharp, their edges glowing golden beneath the new day. The elder stops beside one of the carvings, and lays his palm flat upon the stone. "This is how our ancestors spoke," he says. "Not with words that fade, but with marks that remember." You step closer. The surface of the rock is cool beneath your fingers, its texture rough but strangely alive, as though it still holds the warmth of the hands that made it. You can almost see them, people chiseling in the light of dawn, their shadows stretching long across the ground. The sound of stones striking stone would have echoed through this canyon, like a heartbeat. "These symbols are not pictures," the elder says softly. "They are songs turned to stone. Each one has meaning, but only when seen in the rhythm of light." He gestures toward a cluster of spirals etched high on the wall. As the sun rises, its rays touch them one by one. First the outermost ring, then the next, then the center, until for a moment the spiral blazes white. The light lingers there before moving on. "This spiral," he explains, "marks the movement of the sun and the moon together. It shows how the days turn, how the seasons breathe. At solstice, the light enters its heart. At equinox, it rests between the lines. You notice other forms scattered across the stone. A cluster of 7 dots. A pattern of 3 lines crossing. A pair of circles connected by a thin groove. Each one feels deliberate, balanced, like notes in a silent melody. The 7 dots," the elder continues, "are the Chuhukan, the Pleiades. They remind us that our ancestors are near. The 3 lines? Those are the path of Orion's belt. The same pattern our villages follow upon the mesas. The circles join together. That is the sun and the moon in harmony. All things bound by the same thread of light." He steps back and sweeps his arm across the canyon. "The Hopi do not separate heaven and earth. We carve what we see above into what we stand upon. Every mark is a reflection, a bridge between worlds. You begin to walk along the wall, your shadow gliding beside you like a companion. More symbols emerge in the growing light. Some resemble stars arranged in constellations you half recognize. Others twist into patterns so intricate they seem to breathe. In one place, a great spiral encircles a handprint, as if the hand were reaching through time itself. In another, a long, jagged line cuts downward from a carved sun, ending in the form of a human figure below. You point to it. "What does this one mean?" The elder looks for a moment before answering. "That," he says, "is the path of fire. It tells of the world that was burned. The first world, when people forgot gratitude. It warns us of what happens when light is taken for granted." His eyes narrow against the sun. "Each generation adds their own marks," he adds. "They do not overwrite the old ones. They join them. So the story of the people grows as the sky itself grows. One carving speaks of the stars, another of the rains, another of the hearts of those who lived. Together, they form the memory of the world." You pause at a section where the carvings are denser, woven into a tapestry of symbols that seems to stretch forever. Here the stone looks less like rock, and more like parchment written by the hands of time. Every inch is inscribed with the passage of centuries. Messages layered upon messages. A language beyond words. The elder moves beside you. Do you see how they shimmer? He asks. You nod. As the sun shifts, the grooves catch light differently. The carvings appearing and disappearing like living things. That is because the stone is alive, he says. When the light moves, the story moves. When the shadow falls, the story sleeps. It awakens only when the world is ready to listen again. He bends and draws a spiral in the sand at your feet. Then he adds 3 dots around it. This is how the sky speaks, he says. Circles within circles. Always returning. Our ancestors learned that if you carve these shapes, in harmony with the sun's path, they will remain speaking long after your own voice is gone. You close your eyes for a moment and listen. The canyon is utterly still. No wind, no birds, only the soft hum of sunlight. Yet within that silence, you feel something moving. A pulse deep in the rock beneath you. It's faint, but unmistakable. A rhythm that feels like breathing. When you open your eyes again, the elder is watching you with quiet understanding. The carvings remember us, he says. When we touch them, they wake. They tell the sky, we are still here. He leads you farther along the canyon until the path narrows again. The light becomes more focused here. The rock glowing almost amber. Ahead you see a petroglyph unlike any you've encountered so far. It is enormous. A circle nearly as wide as a person is tall. Its interior filled with spirals, lines, and dots arranged in precise geometry. Around it are figures of people, their hands raised toward the circle as if in worship or greeting. This one, the elder says, is the map of the worlds. Each spiral within it is a world that came before. The figures around it are the guardians, those who remembered enough to guide the next creation. When the 5th world comes, we will carve its circle beside this one. You trace the edge of the great circle with your hand. The groove is deep, deliberate. Each turn smooth as if shaped by endless patience. It feels less like a carving, and more like the rim of something infinite. A doorway between dimensions. The elder watches you quietly. We carve in stone because memory is fragile, he says. Words vanish. Stories change. But stone remembers the way the sky does. Slowly, perfectly, without haste. He looks upward again. The morning has ripened now. The sun burns bright above the canyon rim. In its light, every mark seems to shimmer with renewed life. It's as if the ancestors themselves are speaking through the surface. Their voices carried not in sound, but in reflection. For a long while either of you speaks. You simply stand there together. The silence between you rich and full. Then, softly, the elder says, these carvings are not the past. They are the present remembering itself. He turns to you, his face luminous in the sunlight. One day, he says, you too will leave marks. Maybe not in stone, but in something that endures. Every act of gratitude, every moment of balance, is a carving. The universe keeps them all. He begins to walk again, following the curve of the canyon toward a narrow pass, where the light glows warm and golden. The path winds upward, and as you climb, you glance back one last time at the wall of symbols. The carvings gleam in the morning sun, their forms radiant and alive. A language the earth still speaks to the stars. You realize that the Hopi did not carve these to worship what was above them, but to remind what was above, of the life below. It is communication, not reverence. A message sent across the vast spaces of time and light. A message that says, we remember. We still walk in balance. At the top of the pass, the wind catches your breath and carries it away. The elder stops and turns to look toward the horizon, where the mesas stretch into the shimmering distance. His voice, when he speaks, is almost a whisper. These symbols mark more than the past, he says. They mark where we are in the story of worlds. We are the fourth, the fragile balance between forgetting and remembering. And soon, the circle may turn again. He looks east, where the sunlight now floods the desert with brilliance. And you feel the truth of his words ripple through you like heat rising from stone. The carvings below fade into shadow as the sun climbs higher. But their meaning lingers, carried in the wind, etched now into your own understanding. You walk beside him in silence once more. The world seems brighter, the air lighter, as though the canyon itself has exhaled. Ahead, the land opens wide, and you can see far into the distance. The mesas, the plains, the endless curve of earth meeting sky. The climb is gentle, but endless. The stone path winds upward through pale sand and scattered sage, rising toward the horizon where the sun burns white against a sky so vast it seems to breathe. You walk behind the elder in silence, the sound of your footsteps mingling with the faint hiss of the wind across stone. The canyon of symbols falls away behind you, its carved spirals and constellations fading back into shadow. But they do not leave you. Their shapes linger in your mind, glowing faintly. A quiet chorus of remembrance. At last, the ground levels out onto the wide plateau. The land here feels older than memory. Its surface cracked and veined like the palm of an ancient hand. The elder stops and raises his arm, pointing toward the horizon. There, he says, beyond those mesas lies the heart of this world, our world. The fourth. You look where he points. The distance shimmers in heat. A living mirage that hides and reveals shapes. Hills, cliffs, and the faint ribbon of a river glinting in the light. It looks peaceful, even eternal. But the elder's voice carries a gravity that darkens the stillness. This world was born after 3 others, he says quietly. Each one ended when its people forgot how to live in harmony. The first world burned. The second froze. The third drowned. From those ashes, this one was made. The Creator gave it to us not as a gift, but as a final chance. He begins walking again, his robe brushing against the brittle grass that clings to the rock. This world is different. He continues. The others were destroyed by their own imbalance. But this one teeters between forgetting and remembering. It is the test of all worlds. The wind strengthens, sending small spirals of dust spinning around your feet. They rise and vanish like fleeting spirits. You watch them and realize the truth of his words. Everything here moves in circles. Birth and decay. Light and shadow. Remembering and loss. You walk in silence for a time until the elder stops again. He kneels beside a large flat stone, its surface etched with faint lines, some natural, some carved by human hands long ago. He touches the markings gently. These, he says, are the paths of migration. The people of the previous worlds walked these same lines, carrying memory in their songs and baskets. When they reached this world, they were told, live in balance, or the circle will close once more. He looks up at the sun. Its light fierce now, yet somehow softened by his gaze. We live in the fourth world, but the fifth waits beyond it. The Hopi say that when humanity forgets its purpose, when greed blinds the heart and silence falls between people and the sky, the world will tremble again. You think of the prophecies he told you by firelight, of the blue star that will appear when the time of renewal comes. The memory flickers in your mind like heat on the horizon. But we are not meant to fear this, he says, as if answering your thought. The end is not a punishment. It is a turning. He stands, his shadow long and slender on the stone. Imagine the spiral, he says, tracing the air with his hand. Each world is one turn of its path. When we reach the edge, we do not fall off. We move inward, closer to the center of truth. That is how creation breathes. He begins to walk again. And you follow him along the ridge until the land opens into a wide basin below. There, in the distance, you see the faint outlines of the Hopi mesas. Villages perched atop them like islands in a sea of light. Smoke rises from their hearths, straight and thin against the glowing air. That is where we live, the elder says softly. Between earth and sky. Between what has been and what will come. We are the keepers of this world's balance. You gaze at the mesas, at their calm persistence amid the vastness of desert. They seem to hover, almost weightless, as if held up by the very breath of the wind. You can feel their stillness reaching toward you. A stillness that is not absence but awareness. The people of the fourth world were given instructions, the elder continues, to care for the corn, for the animals, for the rain, for one another. These are simple things, but they are the pillars of life. When we neglect them, the foundation cracks. He looks eastward, where thin clouds begin to form, streaking the sky with silver. In this world, he says, the danger is not the fire or flood. It is forgetfulness. The moment people stop listening to the wind, stop watching the sun, stop thanking the soil, the balance fades. The wind pauses, and the desert falls utterly still. You feel your own heartbeat in that silence, a pulse that seems to echo the rhythm of the world itself. Some say the fourth world is already ending, he murmurs. They point to the sickness of the land, to the noise that drowns the voices of the stars. But I say, the world ends only when the people stop remembering how to begin. He smiles faintly, and the expression seems to carry both sorrow and hope. The Hopi word for life is koyeniskatsi, he says. It means life out of balance. It is both a warning and a promise. When things fall apart, they do so to remind us how to mend them. You let his words settle like dust. Around you, the world seems to hold its breath. The sun's light glows redder now, its warmth spreading across the cliffs and valleys below. Everything gleams as if newly made. The rocks, the distant fields, even the air itself. This is still a living world. The elder says softly, it may be our last chance, but it is also our greatest. Here, in the fourth world, we still have the choice to remember. He begins descending the ridge toward the valley below. You follow, the air growing thicker and warmer as you move. At the base of the slope, you find a small spring, its water clear and trembling with sunlight. The elder kneels beside it, cupping his hands to drink. He gestures for you to do the same. You lean down and taste the water. It is cold, pure, and faintly sweet, as if it carries the memory of rain that fell thousands of years ago. This water, he says, is the blood of the world. Every drop has fallen before, has risen again as cloud, has returned as rain. That is the way of things. Nothing ends. It only changes form. He lifts a handful of the water and lets it fall through his fingers. The droplets sparkle in the sunlight, turning briefly into tiny rainbows before vanishing into the soil. That is what it means to live in the fourth world. He continues, to know that endings are beginnings, that what we lose returns in another way. But only if we live with respect for the circle. He stands and looks to the sky once more. The fifth world is not yet born, he says, but its seed is here, inside each of us. If we remember the balance, if we live with gratitude, then perhaps we will walk into that next world gently, without destruction. You look around at the vast landscape, the shimmering horizon, the distant mesas, the hawks circling far above in the wind. Everything seems to pulse with quiet intention. It is as if the world itself is listening, waiting to see what you will do. The elder turns to you, his eyes bright with the reflection of sun and memory. Remember this, he says. The fourth world is not a place. It is a choice made every day, to live in harmony or in haste, to listen or to forget. We stand always at the edge of two worlds, and the direction we step shapes the sky. He begins walking toward the horizon again, his figure small against the immensity of the land. The light stretches long behind him, casting his shadow forward like an arrow pointing into the future. You follow in silence, feeling the weight of his words settle into you like seeds. Each one seems to take root, growing quietly in the soil of your understanding. The wind rises again, warm and steady, carrying with it the scent of dust and sunlight. It feels less like weather now and more like breath. The breath of the world exhaling softly. Far in the distance, the faint shimmer of twilight begins to touch the sky, turning gold to copper, copper to blue. The stars will return soon, and with them, the memory of those who still watch from above. The elder pauses and looks back at you. His face is calm, his eyes filled with quiet light. Come, he says. The day is ending, but the story continues. The ancestors are still speaking. Even now, they whisper through the stars. You nod, feeling the truth of it rise like a tide inside you. The horizon darkens. The first star appears, bright, steady, familiar. It feels almost like an answer. And as you follow the elder deeper into the cooling dusk, the sky begins to bloom once more with light. A reminder that though the world turns and changes, its memory never fades. Twilight deepens across the desert like ink spilled from the edge of the world. The sun's last light lingers on the rim of the mesas, a thin gold thread unraveling slowly into night. You and the elder walk in silence, your shadows stretching long behind you before dissolving into the blue dusk. The air cools, the wind softens. You can hear the faint ticking of insects waking among the stones, the low hum of the earth settling into evening's breath. Ahead, the village glows again. Fires flicker on the rooftops, their smoke curling upward in spirals that seem to reach for the stars now rising one by one. The world feels suspended between two heartbeats, the living and the remembered, the human and the celestial. The elder stops, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the first constellations shimmer into being. There, he says softly. The ancestors are speaking again. You follow his gaze. The stars emerge from the deepening indigo. Steady, deliberate, ancient. They do not simply appear. They return, each in its rightful place, as though answering an unspoken call. Their light feels both distant and near, like voices carried across water. The elder's tone is reverent, his words falling like prayer. In our language, he says, we call them Pokanghoya and Palangahoya, the twin spirits. They are the ones who keep the world in motion, who balance the poles of earth and sky. When we see the stars move, it is their work we are witnessing. He kneels and gathers a handful of sand, letting it spill slowly between his fingers. Each grain, he says, was once part of something vast, a mountain, a meteor, a star. When we walk upon the earth, we walk upon the dust of our ancestors, both human and celestial. You feel the truth of it as you watch the wind scatter the grains away. The air itself seems full of quiet remembrance, a vast, invisible echo that hums in the space between stars and soil. As darkness deepens, the elder begins to lead you toward a rise overlooking the valley. There, a flat outcrop of stone juts into open air, its surface polished smooth by centuries of wind. You can see the entire desert from here. a sea of shadow under a dome of light. Every spark above seems reflected faintly below, as though the sky has folded upon itself. This, the elder says, is where we listen. He sits cross-legged on the stone and gestures for you to do the same. Then he closes his eyes. For a moment there is nothing. Only silence. The kind of silence that feels alive. And then, slowly, you begin to hear it. A faint vibration at first. Low and resonant. Like the sound of wind trapped in a hollow bone. It deepens, spreads, becomes a tone that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere. It isn't sound in the ordinary sense. It's something older. Something that bypasses hearing and goes straight into the body. The elder's lips move. Not in words but in a gentle hum that joins the sound. Together, the earth and his voice form a single tone. One that feels both infinite and familiar. You feel it in your bones. In your heartbeat. In the soft pressure behind your eyes. This is the echo of the sky people, he whispers finally. It has never stopped. It moves through every stone. Every breath. Every heartbeat that still remembers its origin. He opens his eyes and looks at you. When we are quiet enough, we hear them. Not as ghosts, but as continuity. Their wisdom moves through us. Through our blood, through our stories. That is how they live still. You glance upward. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a vast bridge of light. Its pale band glows so brightly that it casts faint shadows on the rocks. You realize it looks almost like a pathway. A road made of stars. The elder follows your gaze. Yes, he says, his voice softening to almost nothing. The Milky Way is the road home. When our spirits leave the body, they travel that way to the Chuvukan, the cluster of stars where the ancestors dwell. There they rest until the world is ready to begin again. He draws 2 circles in the dust beside him. One large, one small, connected by a faint line. The small one, he says, is us, the 4th world. The large is the realm of the ancestors. The line between them is what you feel when you look at the stars. It is the thread that never breaks. You stare at the drawing until the wind slowly erases it. The sand swallowing the symbols as if taking them back into the earth. Even so, you can still see them in your mind. The connection lingering like an afterimage of light. The elder begins to tell you another story. His tone like the gentle flicker of firelight. In the old days, he says, the sky people would sometimes visit in dreams. They came not as strangers, but as relatives. Their voices woven from wind and light. They would stand at the edge of sleep, and remind the dreamer of the ways of balance. Plant with gratitude, they would say. Speak to the water. Listen to the silence. Remember, every act is ceremony. He smiles faintly. Some still hear them. When the world grows too loud. They come in quiet moments, in the cry of an eagle. In the shimmer of heat on the horizon. Their language is patience. You sit together beneath the great sky. A shooting star streaks across the darkness, leaving a trail that fades slowly. Like a finger drawn across water. You realize that even its passing is part of this great dialogue. The sky writing. The earth listening. The elder turns his head slightly toward you. The stars do not look down upon us, he says. They look through us. They see whether we remember that we are part of them. When we forget, their voices grow faint. When we remember, they sing again. He looks out over the vast horizon, where the line between land and sky has vanished in shadow. For generations, our people have kept this song alive, he says. When we dance, when we plant, when we tell stories, we echo their voices. We are the continuation of their dream. The wind moves through the grasses below, and you can hear it. A whispering sound that seems to mimic distant chanting. It rises and falls in a rhythm that feels deliberate, ancient. You imagine that the desert itself is singing, its voice carried in every ripple of air. The elder's gaze softens. One day, he says, when the circle turns again, the ancestors will return, not to rule, but to remind. They will come as light in the sky, as the glimmer of understanding in the hearts of those who listen. They will not need to speak. Their presence will be enough. He takes a deep breath, his chest rising and falling like a tide. Even now, he adds, they guide us. When the rains come, when the stars align, when the corn ripens without drought, these are their blessings. You look up once more. The sky feels alive with motion. Though the stars remain fixed, they pulse, their light flickering softly like breath. You feel small, but not insignificant. A single thought within a mind too vast to name. The elder places a hand on your shoulder. Never forget, he says. We are not separate from them. When we live well, we honor their dream. When we live carelessly, we silence their song. But they are patient. They wait. Even when we forget them, they do not forget us. The wind rises again, cool and fragrant with the scent of juniper. The stars seem to tremble in the moving air, as though acknowledging his words. You sit there until the night deepens fully, until the chill begins to settle on your skin. The elder hums softly again, and you recognize the same tone from before, a sound that feels like the heartbeat of the cosmos. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you can feel it all at once. The pulse of your heart, the hum of the earth, the quiet shimmer of stars, all one rhythm, all one breath. When you open your eyes, the horizon has shifted again. The faintest pale glow touches the east. The promise of another dawn. The elder rises slowly, his movements deliberate, graceful. He gazes toward that first light and says quietly, the ancestors fade with the stars each morning, but they do not vanish. They sink into the heart of the earth, and wait for night to wake them again. He turns to you with a calm smile. Now you know, he says. The stars are not far away. They are within us, echoes of the same fire that burns in their hearts. He starts down the slope toward the sleeping village, his shadow stretching before him, long and thin against the pale sand. The night feels vast, but not lonely. The echoes of the sky people linger in every breath, in every sound the world makes as it moves toward morning. You follow in silence, your feet light, your heart steady. Somewhere above, a final star flickers and fades, its light dissolving into the rising blue. And as it does, you realize the journey is not ending. It is circling back, just as the Hopi always said it would. The elder looks back once, his eyes bright with reflection. Come, he says. The night has spoken. Now we must listen to the silence beneath the stars. The dawn hesitates. It lingers at the edge of the world, as though the sun itself is reluctant to wake the silence that has settled over the desert. The air is still cool, tender, carrying the scent of dust and the faint sweetness of sage. You and the elder walk side by side along the narrow trail, your shadows merging, stretching ahead into the pale light. Above you, the last stars glimmer faintly, fading lanterns at the end of a long vigil. You stop on a rise overlooking the valley. The land spreads out below like an open palm. Folds of sand, stone, and river, each line etched by centuries of wind and memory. For a long moment, neither of you speaks. The only sound is the soft hiss of the wind moving through the grass. The same sound, perhaps, that the first Hopi heard when they emerged from the earth. The elder sits upon a flat stone, his movements slow and deliberate. He gestures for you to sit beside him. You do, and together you watch the horizon grow brighter. The thin silver of morning becoming gold. The world, in its quiet way, feels infinite. This is the silence, the elder says finally. The one beneath the stars. His voice is calm, steady. So gentle that you almost mistake it for the voice of the wind itself. When the people forget the language of ceremony. When they speak too loudly and listen too little. This is the silence that remains. It is not empty. It is full of remembrance. He looks toward the east, where the first rays of sunlight strike the mesas, turning their red stone faces to fire. Every dawn is the earth remembering the light, he says, and every night is the sky remembering the dark. Between them, we live our small lives, breathing, planting, loving, losing, all in rhythm with the worlds that came before. You feel the truth of his words ripple through you like wind through reeds. It is not sadness that fills you, but a deep, steady peace. The realization that nothing truly vanishes, that all things move in circles, each life echoing into the next. The elder closes his eyes. The ancestors say that when the stars first sang creation into being, their song wove the fabric of everything that exists. It is still there, beneath the noise of our thoughts. A music too vast for ears, too subtle for instruments. It is the hum of being itself. He touches his hand to the ground. Listen, he whispers. You obey. At first, you hear only the breeze, the faint tremor of your own heartbeat. Then, slowly, something else emerges beneath it. A vibration so low it feels like warmth in your chest. A soundless resonance that connects everything around you. The earth, the air, the faint shimmer of light. All breathing together. All singing the same song. The elder opens his eyes again. That is what our stories mean, he says. The petroglyphs, the ceremonies, the prophecies. They are not about fear or gods or power. They are reminders of that song. When the people forget how to hear it, the world must remind them. That is why we watch the stars. He smiles faintly. You have seen how they move. How each one keeps its place. How their rhythm never falters. They do not rush. They do not argue. They do not forget. They remember the original song. They keep time for the universe. He falls silent again. The desert around you begins to wake. A hawk glides overhead, its wings catching the rising light. Far below, the first tendrils of smoke lift from the village hearths. The world continues. As it always has. As it always will. The elder turns to you. When we speak of the fourth world ending, he says, it is not the earth that dies. It is the memory within us that fades. The Hopi word for the end is not destruction. It means forgetting. And so our task is simple. To remember. He points toward the horizon where the last star still flickers. A stubborn spark refusing to yield to daylight. That one, he says softly, is called Savu. It watches when all others sleep. It reminds us that even when light fades, the memory of it remains. He looks at you for a long moment. Everything you have seen, the carvings, the dances, the stories, they are not the past. They are the map of how to live, to walk gently, to give thanks, to listen when the world speaks, and to speak only when your words add balance. His gaze turns distant. When the next world comes, those who remember these things will find their way through. The rest will wander until they learn to listen again. The wind rises, curling around you like a living thing. You close your eyes and feel it move through your hair, your clothes, your breath. It feels like being seen, like being remembered. The elder stands slowly, his shadow falling long behind him in the morning light. Now you understand why we call ourselves Hopi, he says. It means the peaceful ones, but it also means those who walk in balance. To live Hopi is to live in harmony with all that breathes. Stone, cloud, star, heart. He begins walking toward the edge of the plateau, his figure framed by the rising sun. You rise to follow, each step feeling both lighter and heavier than the last. Light with wonder, heavy with the weight of meaning. At the edge, the view opens into eternity. The sky above burns clear and boundless. The desert below glows with warmth. For a moment, the entire world seems suspended in one perfect breath. The elder turns to you one last time. The stars do not ask us to worship, he says. They ask us to remember. They are not windows to another world. They are mirrors, showing us the light we carry within ourselves. He looks upward, his eyes reflecting the last fading star. When you leave this place, he says, do not look for the ancestors in the heavens. Look for them in the kindness between people, in the patience of water, in the quiet strength of the earth. That is where they live now. He places a hand gently over your heart. And here, he adds, they live here. You stand together in silence. The sun clears the horizon, washing the desert in gold. The last star fades completely, but somehow you still feel its presence. A memory glowing behind the veil of daylight. The elder lowers his hand and smiles. Go well, he says. The world is listening. Then he turns, walking down the long path toward the village, his figure growing smaller against the brilliance of morning. You remain where you are, watching the horizon blur in light. The air hums softly around you, the same vibration you felt in the silence before dawn. The voice of the world continuing its eternal song. You close your eyes. The warmth of the sun rests on your skin. The wind breathes against your ear. For a heartbeat, you can hear it all. The murmur of stars beyond sight. The rhythm of earth beneath your feet. The faint echo of ancestral voices carried in the light. They whisper not of endings, but of remembering, of walking gently, of balance restored. And so, as the day opens fully, you remain in that golden hush, listening to the silence beneath the stars. The silence that is not silence at all, but the pulse of a living universe that has never stopped speaking. And may its whisper follow you, wherever you walk, reminding you, always, that you are part of its light, that you have never been forgotten, that even now, beneath the endless turning sky, you are home.